We'll open this morning with a prayer. Heavenly Father, grant that we who would seek to serve you may have the wisdom of your Spirit, the guiding of your hand, and the grace to serve together for the prosperity of our city through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Let's be upstanding for our national anthem.
Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are one and free, with golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Please be seated. Item 1, attendance and apologies, nil. Leave of absence, nil. Item 3, condolences. I got nil, just in case there's any late one, councillors. No, we move on to item 4, Mayoral minute. Councillors, if we can go to the Mayoral minute there. Heading is recycling bin trial, Southern Gold Coast. Councillors, I move that the recycling bin are placed along the coastal strip from Derrimbar Beach up to Palm Beach Parklands, with the specific location to be identified by officers in consultation with the local councillors. 2, that these recycle bins are implemented in the above-mentioned areas in time for the 2022 school holidays, Christmas holiday period, or before the end of this year, or 2022. 3, that the CEO report back to a council meeting in the new year with options on how the city will address the deficit of recycle bin options south of Broadbeach. Councillors, there's preamble there. I believe I have support from our area council in Division 14. Okay, I do. So, councillors, anyone speak against the motion? We're trying to be good at waste management. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, carry, unanimous. Confirmation of minutes. Councillors, any corrections on that? Someone like to move for adoption? Councillor Pauline Young, second to Councillor Tozer. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, carry, unanimous. Mayor's report. As have a good sized agenda in front of us today. I'll do a relatively brief version, but I know some of you will read with interest the detailed report that will be attached to the minutes. Item 1 was Lone Park rededication ceremony. I was in attendance with Councillor Vorster. The rededication ceremony was held in Lone Park in Robina, a fitting event on Remembrance Day. The Gallipoli pine located in the park is a seedling from the single remaining lone pine that dominated the reach where the Australian First Division fought the Turks on 6th of August 1915. And we also unveiled a new war memorial in the park, thanks to local Robina Lions, Madribar Robina RSL and federal government. But I want to make a special acknowledgement to Councillor Vorster, who came up with the idea for the whole thing. and I don't want people to think that it was without him this wouldn't occur. So congratulations, Councillor Vorster. You absolutely promised to do it and was delivered in spades. Southport RSL Remembrance Day commemoration. Councillor Castro, Councillor Baildon, and who was the other councillor was there? Was I seeing? And myself, of course, for Remembrance Day at Southport. Pacific Air Show briefing. Councillor Gates, O'Neill, Councillor Baildon, Lumsden, Lacastra. Anyone else there? All right, major events. But in short, councillors, this Pacific Air Show will be one of our major events, and in what I see and what I believe the executives of the Pacific Air Show for the next 5 years, it will rival one of the biggest events in our city. So it'll be interesting how they can coordinate it all. Defence Force, you name it, it's one of the biggest accomplishments by MEGC. Opening night, Greece at the Musical. I was joined by Councillor Castro and Councillor Patterson. Acknowledgement, Councillor Patterson also helped with a bit of funding there from LAW, and I tried to look a bit greasy there, but the quality of production was amazing, especially Danny Suko, who played that. He was exceptional. Anyway, I would say Spotlight Theatre, I wouldn't hesitate to lend any support that they need to really harness our creatives who are out there, and congratulations to the show itself. It will run until 10th of December, so not too late to check it out. It's truly amazing. Launch of Pop Master exhibition. I was joined by HOTA Chair, Honourable Jackie Trad, to promote a HOTA new world exclusive exhibition of Pop Master. You know, with COVID and all that, it was it's been a long road, and it's wonderful that it's going ahead. Exhibition will run from 18th of February to 4th of June. Mayoral safest suburbs, usual Councillor Gade, Vorster, Patterson and Councillor Taylor in attendance. In short, we have another fantastic briefing from Queensland Police sharing us data, and it goes to show that the amazing job the Queensland Police are doing in our city. I think we'll continue to advocate that they have additional resource from the state government. I understand it's very hard for the police themselves to advocate on their own behalf, and I think we should lend them a hand and really push forward with that. And we'll continue to work with the fleet of our CCTV to make sure that we are watching the potential even perpetrators. And it's wonderful. I'll talk to Superintendent Craig Hanlon to see if he can address all of us, because when you hear what he's got to say in close, of course, and to give us the confidence that the police are doing a fantastic job in our city. My neat streets announcements. Congratulations for the 6 streets. Josephine Terrace, Highland Park, Division 5, Petworth Court, Arundel, Division 7, Witt Avenue, Carrara, Division 8, Marks Drive, Varsity Lake, Division 11, Joy Avenue, Burleigh Waters, Division 12, Marion Street, Chugan, Division 14. During our consultation period, I'll see if Ruth would like to take a drive and let's have a look at all these neat streets. Great. Congratulations to all of them. Item 8, welcome roundtable to Victorian 2026 Commonwealth Games Organising Committee. They asked me to speak, and I shared with them of what we did very well and a couple of things that we could have done better. And to assist, they don't have a lot of time in front of them to host the 2026 Commonwealth Games, and they've got to work together with 4 councils, and of course the opening and closing is in Melbourne, so it's going to be a coordination, traffic management, and they've got to build facilities, so it's going to be a challenging task. That's what I said. Citizenship ceremony, I think Councillor Hamill attend one of those with me, and another 336 people with 66 different countries is now calling Australia their new home. Item 10, Gold Coast Corporate Rotary Club Annual Business Breakfast at the Island Surfers Paradise, and I was on the panel there, so basically it's the time of year where we share our thoughts of the future of our city. Demographer, I mean, the list is there. Launch of Mayor's Christmas Carol. There's a video there. We'll just play that if we can.
Thanks for being with us. One of the biggest stars to win Australian Idol has been announced as the headline act at this year's Gold Coast Mayor's Christmas Carols. The event will again be on the screens of 7 with a few familiar hosts.
Looney Tunes and a festive Tom Tate.
Oh, mic drop.
Getting the whole gang together for a big announcement.
Tweety, Bugs, Sylvester, you know. Who the hell are you? Sorry, it's Rudolph. I guess I'm on the naughty list, Santa.
But he'll be back in the good books come December 3 when 10,000 people come together for the Mayor's Christmas Carols, a free event with fireworks and a drone show at the Broadwater Parklands. Last year, an unscripted light show added flair. This year's forecast.
The weather is going to be perfect. I've checked. I rang him up. He goes, yeah, Tom, you got that one.
The Mayor's also got a star-studded lineup. Anthony Collier and Tim Campbell will headline. The Looney Tunes will entertain the kids. A special guest will bring his favourite reindeer.
Well, of course I'm there. In fact, I'm bringing my friend Rudolph, and we are doing a show.
And 2 familiar faces will bring it all together.
The best presenter I can find is Steve Titmus and Amanda Rebate. You see them on 7 every night, but when you see them in real life, they are so much fun.
All the action begins at 5 p.m.
So come along, it's going to be wonderful.
Who can say no to Santa? Amelia Adam, 7 Gold Coast News.
Oh, we'll take that, Tom.
Yeah, so it was Rudolph, the one that I didn't recognise. So launch of 12 Plays of Christmas. So another video. Yeah, well, hey, one thing that I find wonderful there is that I did say in the paper, I don't know if it's yesterday or today, was that the 12 Plays of Christmas, there's one thing the Gold Coast does well: we leave no one behind. So people in wheelchair, disability, and all that, they can go to they got facility. They can go to iFly. You know, they can't walk, but they can fly. You know, so it's fantastic. It's heartening when you look at the program, and we're very inclusive. Sydney, next item, Sydney Economic Business Lunch. Councillor Gates, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Tozer and Councillor Pauline Young. The luncheon again took place at the Glass at the Island, and so it's about economics, second largest yeah, you all know our stuff there, but really it appears that confidence is really in place, and the city, the Gold Coast, is going to go so strong in the next three to 5 years. Next one is Gold Coast Business Excellence Award. We all had a great time. Most councillors were there. Councillor Gates, Baildon, Lumsden, Hamill, O'Neill, Councillor Owen Jones. Congratulations to tourism icon Paul Donovan was inducted into the Gold Coast Hall of Fame and deserve a well-standing ovation. And the 2022 Business of the Year award went to Aero Medical Service, Medical Rescue. So it's wonderful. Next one, launch of City's new surf safety campaign. Basically it shows that people in the age of male in the age of 17 to 35, they're the ones who's not swimming between the flag, had a few drinks and swim at night. That's a recipe for disaster, and that's the message we're trying to get out there. Lifeblood mobile donation, another video there.
There's been a call for arms with Gold Coast residents urged to give blood heading into Christmas. Mayor Tom Tate rolled up his sleeve today in Lifeblood's mobile van, which will travel across the city. The organisation needs to fill 5,000 appointments over the next 5 weeks to make up for current shortages.
So Robina, we should be seeing about 80 to 100 people a day. We're lucky if we're getting 50 to 60 people through our doors.
The donor centres in Southport and Robina will be open from 7 a.m. until late.
And councillors, the mobile centre, next visit on the 16th of April. So that's a good date claimer for you. Launch of 2022 Australian All-Star Cheerleading Federation. And here's an interesting stat. 12 elite athletes competing with 40,000 plus spectators. It's amazing how big it is. So another major event for our city, and it's $10 million in our local economy for that for those 3 days event. The Gunners, next item, larger than life tour at Metricon, and goes to show you forget some of the songs until they played it. So the show was end with Paradise City, so it's very appropriate, and it looks like, you know, post-COVID and everything, we're going to get more. I know what's coming, but I can't share it in open. We'll do it at lunch. And so it's an exciting time for major acts for our city. So here we go. Dressati family donation at Hodder. Councillor Gates, Hamill, Lacastre and Patterson in attendance. Very, very humble and generous donation. I wasn't sure whether I was allowed to say how much they donated, but Gallery 4 is now the Dressati family gallery, and if you have time to have a look at on loan all the artwork from the Dressati family, it's quite incredible. Anyway, when we have time, I'd like to walk. Whoever wants to come over, I'll show you some funny ones that I found. But it's great for our gallery, and anyone out there, check it out. Australian Basketball Schools Championship. Acting Mayor Councillor Donna Gates attended the launch with the basketballers, and only smiling because they're all tall people, aren't they? And another major event. Next one, Future Gold Coast Forum 2022. Our acting mayor, Councillor Gates, took the rein as our guest panellist for the Future Forum, and I know it's not easy to be out there in spotlight and people asking impromptu questions and things, but well done, and thank you very much for representing our council. Councillors, I move that my mayor's report be welcome and noted. Seconder, Councillor Gates. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, carry, unanimous. Thank you for your patience on that I skipped through very quickly. Clarification on members, nil. Item 8, business arising from minutes, nil. Item 9, this is the part I enjoy the most, and I go to Councillor Pauline Young. These are the presentations.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and once again the city's very well represented, especially in transport and infrastructure. So this morning we've got quite a few awards, the first one being presentation of 2 awards for the resurfacing of the Christine Avenue and Varsity Parade roundabout at Robina, and I think we'll be joined by officers Jerry Wagner and Sam Hodson, and I believe these 3 awards also involved our previous director, Councillor, that'd be nice, Director Twine, under his watch before the changes. So for the first one, in September 2021, the City of Gold Coast, in collaboration with Oztech Roads, conducted a trial of an innovative carbomastic product. It's the first of its kind in Australia, and the project involved the resurfacing of the Christine Avenue and Varsity Parade roundabout at Robina. The resurfacing of the roundabout has resulted in 2,610 end-of-life passenger vehicle tyres being resurfaced for the pavement in the roundabout. There's actually 2 awards, the Australian Flexible Pavement Association Innovation Award for 2021 and the 22 Institute of Public Works Engineer Australasia Queensland Excellence Awards Environment and Sustainability. Yep.
We'll go in front of the press. Someone on the other side. So, councillors, I move that council receive and notes the Australian Flexible Paving Association, the Innovation Award of 2021 and 2022 Institute of Public Works Engineer Australasia Queensland Excellence Award and Environmental Sustainability for resurfacing of Christian Avenue and Varsity Parade roundabout at Robina. Seconder, Councillor Pauline Young. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, carry, unanimous. Well done. So, Councillor Pauline Young, back to you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Coastal Engineering Award for our Wonder Reef. Wonder Reef is the world's first buoyant dive attraction. The project represents an extraordinary feat of engineering. Almost 15 months of technical analysis and concept and detailed design were required to ensure that the Wonder Reef could withstand the harsh marine environment and also the cyclonic wave heights of over 18 metres that have been experienced in the city in the past. This world-class $5 million dive attraction for certified divers of all level is an innovative fusion of art, science and engineering design, and has attracted hundreds of different marine life species in just a few short months, and I probably don't need to tell you that because you've been there. On behalf of Council, we congratulate Darren Stewart, Deborah Wright and Christy Konings in winning this prestigious award for the city. 2022 Institute of Public Works Engineer, Australasia, Queensland Excellence Award, Coastal Engineering, Wonder Reef.
Wow. Councillor, I move the recommendation on the screen. Seconder, Councillor Pauline Young. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Councillor Gates, yeah, all good? Against? Carry unanimous. Next item, Councillor Pauline Young.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A presentation for the 2022 Institute of Public Works Engineers, Australasia, Queensland Excellence Awards, Women in Engineering. And this award is going to be presented to Sharon Fong. Fantastic. The 2022 Institute of Public Works Engineers Excellence Awards for Women in Engineering category was presented to the city's assets very own Sharon Fong. This is the peak body representing those actively involved in the delivery of public works and services within Queensland. The Excellence Awards program places a spotlight on the projects and people who deliver exceptional outcomes for Queensland communities. And we're very fortunate to have Sharon as part of the Gold Coast team. This award recognises Sharon for her contribution to the engineering industry through involvement in program, project delivery, advisory roles and voluntary service to the industry. So I'd just like to say congratulations to Sharon.
Councillor, move the motion on the screen. Second, Councillor Pauline Young. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Councillors, yes, okay. Carry, unanimous. Councillor Vorster, we go to you.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. And as much as I love the beautiful south of the city, today I rise to talk about a beautiful facility in the north and recognise with two awards the phenomenal job that was done at Pimpama with our new hub, which the current councillor and the former councillor I'm sure value as genuine legacy genuine legacy for the city and for their time in office. Mr Mayor, today the two awards are titled as follows. The Master Builders Queensland 2022 Construction Award for Sports Facility of the Year. Probably should read decade. And the Master Builders Queensland 2022 Gold Coast Housing and Construction Awards for Project of the Year and Sports Facility of the Year. And Mr Mayor, we have Matt Mead and James Davies here to receive the awards from ADCO Constructions. Mr Mayor, ADCO Constructions Proprietary Limited were the construction company who built the Pimpama Sports Hub, which officially opened to the public, of course, we'd all remember, in December 2021. They've recently been recognised for their work at the Master Builders Queensland Awards, which were held on the 15th of October 2022 in the category of sporting facility. Mr Mayor, earlier this year, ADCO Constructions were successful in receiving both these awards, and we're proud to announce that they went on to win the Queensland Construction Award, so winning the city and then Queensland. So lots of momentum there. This is an amazing recognition for our construction partner ADCO and their commitment to seeing the city's vision for this Pimpama Sports Hub come into reality, particularly, and we must all acknowledge this, the very, very difficult conditions at that site. It was not a simple operation to realise that vision. And of course, they were similarly impacted by COVID-19 and wet weather. Mr Mayor, since it's been nearly a year since the opening of the hub, and we've turned it into an amazing community anchor in the northern end of the Gold Coast, and really a facility that part of the Gold Coast genuinely deserved. With the precinct now hosting more than 500,000 visitors since December 2021, it's become the premier community destination for the Northern Corridor. It's included 230,000 aquatic patrons, 1,240 active gym members, which certainly don't include me, 1,200 learn to swim students, and 75,000 visitors to the community centre. It's great that this builder has been recognised for its significant role in the hub's journey. Mr Mayor, I might invite ADCO's representatives to the front so you may present their awards, and just again on behalf of the Directorate responsible for overseeing the project, just say how proud we are to have delivered something that this part of the Gold Coast has deserved for many decades.
Thank you. Councillor, I move the motion that's on the screen. Councillor Vorster, would you second that?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor, I put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry unanimous. As a city, we do punch above our awards. That's why I said to you, it's one of the best part of our meetings when we show excellence. And Mr CEO, we really have very good officers there. Okay, item 10. We go from the one that I like the most to the one that I probably don't like too much. Conflict of interest. Councillor Gates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This first one today, first of many, but this one is seeking permission of the council to meet with the zone planning group about the new land that's been brought within the urban footprint as the result of Amendment Package 2 and 3. And Mr Mayor, their engineer, whom I won't be meeting with, but the engineer for the project is Morton Urban Solutions, who were donors to me, to my election campaign in 2008. At that time, they donated $5,250, and in aligning with the Act, I need to make that declaration and get the permission of council if I wish to meet with the other consultants on this project. So I won't be meeting with Morton's, I'll be meeting with Zone Planning Group and HB Properties, and I seek council's consideration of my doing that meeting. Okay,
can you move up to procedure motion there? To motion. Yeah. Well, councillors, we need a procedure motion. Does someone want to got an idea? Councillor Vorster.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm of a mind to move a procedural motion that Councillor Gates may participate in those discussions, but with your indulgence, if I could ask the Minutes Secretary to scroll up just a little bit. I'm not sure if I caught Councillor Gates' explanation as to why she'd wish to participate.
The reason, there it is. I seek permission to landowners and...
Okay, great. All right, well...
And no meeting, you could even put no meetings in such to... historic donors.
Awesome. No worries. I just want to make sure.
Do you want to cut and paste that, or?
No. Well, I'm happy to move quite simply that Councillor Gates may participate in the decision despite the council's conflict of interest, because of the significant time that has elapsed since receiving the donation and the potential decision at hand, noting there is an extremely remote nexus between the interests of the donor and the parties with which Councillor Gates proposes to meet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Second to Councillor Pauline Young. Councillor, that's the motion on screen. Anyone speak against that motion? Put the motion to you, councillors. All in favour, show of hands.
Mayor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen-Jones, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? And Councillor Gates did not vote. Motion carried. Councillor Hamill.
Mr. Mayor, this one will be very quick once it comes up on the screen. So, Mr. Mayor, it's just to let the organisation or let my elected friends know that I have a development application in on my residential property at the moment for a new boat ramp to be constructed. So I haven't had any meetings with officers and won't be meeting with officers, and I don't think there will be any need for a decision of council on it to come to committee or anything, but it's just as part of the process to let the CEO know and my colleagues know that the application is in and that I will be having nothing to do with the process.
Okay. And procedural motion? No need? No. Okay. Thank you for that. I go to Councillor Vorster.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be very, very, very quick. I'm rising to make a declarable conflict of interest. The nature of the declarable interest is as follows. A reasonable person may form the view I have an interest in decisions relating to future stages of HOTA. This is because Bond University has made an unsolicited proposal to partner with the Council in some way in the master planning and delivery of these future stages. Bond University is my wife's employer and has invited me, the Divisional Councillor, to functions from time to time. The Mayor's indicated I may need to manage this conflict by noting that he could not talk too deeply about future stages lest it trigger a need to manage a potential declarable conflict of interest. My regular disclosures there concerning bond on screen. I'm seeking permission to participate in the decisions related to this matter because HOTA is a multi-$100 million endeavour that will shape the Gold Coast economy and enhance its reputation as a cultural tourism destination. At the same time, questions have been raised about how future stages may impact ratepayers and access to green and open space. The project is city defining, and these matters will require input from all community representatives to secure the best possible outcome. I'm seeking permission to participate in these decisions to preempt a perception issue and do not feel that my deliberations would conflict with the public interest whatsoever. It will also allow me to seek the same briefing as other councillors, in which I could not participate because the briefing was delivered in a workshop, not a committee or council meeting, where this could have otherwise been managed.
That's good. Abundance of caution. Now, Councillor Tozer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question for the public record through you to Councillor Vorster. Is there any benefit or penalty that your wife as an employee of Bond University might face by any decision made at HOTA that you can...
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councillor Tozer, for the question. My wife is employed as a teacher at Bond University, where she teaches maths and statistics predominantly, sometimes international trade, econometrics and entrepreneurship. I've consistently held the view that my wife's a mere employee and not a member of the management of Bond University, which would or could trigger any conflict. But it's a perception issue. Thank you.
Would you like to?
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move that Councillor Vorster may participate in the decision despite the councillor's conflict of interest. Yeah, I honestly can't. I can't even think of the words. It feels so far away. Remote in nature. That's
wonderful.
Great.
Well. Secondary, anyone? Councillor Pauline Young. I know with the current acts, abundance of caution is the best way. And oh, great. Okay. Anyone speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands.
Mayor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Gates, Councillor Corwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bowden Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? Motion carried. I haven't got there yet. Okay. And Councillor Vorster did not vote. Motion carried. Thanks, Tim. Okay. Now we go to item 11, 11.1, Special Budget Committee. Council, I move that the minutes of the Special Budget Committee held on 17th November 2022 be received. Second, Councillor Gates. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Councillor Gates, move for adoption. Councillor Owen Jones, move for adoption. Seconder. Anyone want to speak against? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Lifestyle Community. Councillor Vorster.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I move that the report of the Lifestyle and Community Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 22nd of November 2022, covered by recommendations 1 through 7, be received. Thank you.
Seconder, Councillor Bowden Lumsden. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Councillor, any items you wish to deal separately? Councillor Vorster.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just 8.1.
Councillors, we go to 8.1.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that, and if there's a second, I'll just be very brief.
Move, Councillor Vorster. I'll second that. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, one of the most exciting bodies of work that the City is undertaking presently is the review of the way services are delivered and the way our business delivers what's most important to the community. And in the realm of lifestyle and community, that has a lot to do with sports facilities, making sure we give more kids more opportunity to make better use of the assets that we already have, because we all know, unless you're dredging the Broadwater, it's very difficult to create more space. Mr Mayor, one of the bottlenecks in getting more kids playing sport is the fact that we don't have daylight savings in the state. In the absence of a rational view on daylight savings, we're forced to look at sports field lighting as the way to give those kids the opportunities we want to create for them. Mr Mayor, it has been horrendously expensive for us to deliver new sports lights. It doesn't need to be horrendously expensive, and I just want to thank the city officers that I've worked with, together with our new director, Elton Twine, and the leadership demonstrated by a new CEO, seem to have broken through old ways of thinking. And I'm reasonably confident that over the next 12 months, we will land on a new way of delivering sports field lighting that could cut hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the cost of a project and months. And most importantly, Mr Mayor, it will arm our sporting clubs from Wongawallan down to Coolangatta with the information they need to pursue their fair share of state and federal funding when grants become available. Because we haven't had our clubs in a strong position to do so, and we've probably lost that fair share of funding historically. So this is an exciting body of work. It'll make the best use of the assets that we have and will reflect our new way of thinking in the city. So I just want to talk about it. Thank you.
Yeah, I just hurried it up.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't see there was...
Well, I'm happy. Councillor Castro seconded.
I think I did.
Yeah, you did. Can you put Councillor Castro as a seconder, please? Anyone speak against this wonderful motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carried. Unanimous. Any other items, councillors? Councillor Tozer.
If I could just speak to 6.3 and move the committee recommendation.
6.3?
Please.
Yep. Okay, Councillor we go to 6.3. Councillor Tozer, you move the motion?
Yes, please.
Seconder, Councillor Caldwell seconded the committee.
Mr Mayor, at committee we discussed at length what is a report that deals with, in part, the future strategy in relation to tourist parks and in particular the potential development by the council of a recreational vehicle park. In the report it talks about a number of Mayoral Division 9 locations for that potential, and necessarily there is the resolution speaks for itself, but I wanted to just put some clarification in there. I think what the committee really discussed is whether council should develop a recreational vehicle park, and whilst I would hate to think the public interpreted the resolution such that we were negative about recreational vehicle parks in general. It's quite possible there are a number of sites throughout the hinterland where a private entity could lodge a development application and deliver a recreational vehicle park. Frankly, I think there's probably an appetite for that. There is already some successful recreational vehicle parks or places where recreational vehicles can park, and significant investment has gone into a number of existing locations. I just didn't want there to be any lack of clarity about that. Right now, the site that was formerly known as the Mayoral Caravan Park and now known as Rainforest Rental Village has had millions of dollars invested into it just over the last 12 months. The team of, the development team there have cleaned that place out, and it now has a beautiful parkland right against the creek. People are now moving into that on a regular basis, and I think there's not too far away that people can feel safe and comfortable heading into the hinterland and parking a recreational vehicle at Mayoral Caravan Park. And for those councillors who have know the history of that site over the past 2 decades, it hasn't been a place where that can occur. But I did want to acknowledge that there has been some there was a little bit of conversation in my community about the resolution that we weren't supportive of recreational vehicle parks, and that is just not true, Mr Mayor. Whilst we don't want to develop our own, we have some amazing tourist parks where recreational vehicles can park. The purpose of this resolution was effectively to communicate that we're not interested in expanding our network of tourist parks into recreational vehicle parks that are new parks owned by council. We are already investing heavily in tourist parks across the city, and councillors will be aware of that. But we would welcome new applications for hinterland tourism and tourism opportunities, privately funded, and we would be very welcome to look at that. And I know that the planning committee would ultimately deal with those development applications, but I hate to think that the resolution here today excludes private entities from taking a look at that. We'd really like to see that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry unanimous. Any other items, councillors? Councillor Vorster?
No, Mr Mayor, other than to move that the remaining recommendations of the Lifestyle and Community Committee be adopted. Thank you.
Seconder, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carry unanimous. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, we go to Transport and Infrastructure. Councillor Pauline Young.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that the report of the Transport and Infrastructure Committee meeting held on Tuesday, the 22nd of November 2022, covered by recommendations 1 to 10, be received.
Seconder, Councillor Taylor. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Any items separately? Councillor Gates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm going to be leaving the room for consideration of item 7.1. I made declarations at committee relating to 2 donations that I have received, and I've made the declarations in an abundance of caution, and I'd just prefer to leave the room while the matter's considered.
Okay.
They're both on the screen. One was from Hanson Quarry and one from Coastal Tipper Hire, who have land in the area.
All right. Well, we'll deal with 7.1 straight away. Don't go so far. Councillor Owen-Jones.
So, Mr Mayor, I moved to the committee and I'm happy to move it today.
Okay, move. Who seconded at the committee? Yeah, seconder, Councillor Peter Young. Councillor
Mr Mayor, this has been an ongoing body of work that the city officers have done in regards to aligning the costs of repairing haulage routes that are impacted by the extractive industry and making sure that the fair share of the costs is directly attributable to the levy. So we've come a long way in the last couple of years, so it's a great body of work, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry unanimous. Could you recall Councillor Gates? Councillors, any other items you wish to deal separately? No? I'll go to Councillor Pauline Young.
I move that the remaining recommendations of the Transport and Infrastructure Committee be adopted.
Second to Councillor Taylor. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Anyone against? Carry unanimous. Thank you, Director. We go to Water, Waste and Energy. Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I move that the report of the Water, Waste and Energy Committee meeting held on Thursday, 24th of November 2022, covered by recommendations 1 to 10, be received.
Second to Councillor Hamill. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Any items you wish to deal separately, Councillor Hamill?
Mr Mayor, to move and quickly speak to them 7.1, 2 and 3.
All right, we go to 7.1 first.
Yeah. Happy to.
Who seconded at the committee?
I'll second.
Second to Councillor Owen Jones.
Mr Mayor, so these 3 items are all on grey paper, so I can't get into figures and numbers too much, but the main reason for wanting to move this particular item is to acknowledge that it has been an ongoing piece of work by city officers in the Water and Waste Directorate for 6 to 7 years now to bring this one together. Through my time on committee and through previous committees' time, it's come back through on a dozen different occasions explaining the step-by-step process of how this long-term plan has come together, which I can say delivers close to $300 million in infrastructure upgrades and benefits at our sewage treatment plants in future years. So a very significant investment over that time. What was really interesting in the report and what officers should be commended on is that by the new approach we've taken to bringing this long-term contract together, we've identified savings in the millions of dollars, identified some great efficiencies in how we're going to work with the new contractor, which all leads to, Mr Mayor, saving ratepayers' funds in the long term. So a job well done, and on this one, a significant congratulations to the Directorate. It's a shame the Director's not here, but I'm sure Christian can pass on the thanks of committee and council to the whole Directorate and all the officers involved for bringing such a big project together and the savings that you've found for our ratepayers.
Okay. For those watching through streaming, the motion's on the screen, so I didn't have to ask for it to be read out. All right, anyone speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry. Unanimous. Councillor Hamill, 7.2.
Mr Mayor, 7.2, the resource recovery contract. Again, Mr Mayor, this has been, sorry, Mr Mayor, Councillor Owen Jones did second if he's before I jump into it.
Owen Jones.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Mayor, again, another huge piece of work that has been going through this Directorate for 5 or 6 years now. I know in my time on committee it's come back through on at least 10 occasions where we've had updates. It's been one because of the size of the contract, but also the complexity of it and the involvement of city staff in this plan, making sure that committee was well kept up to date the whole way through the process so we understood what was going on and what the benefits were. Mr Mayor, the biggest benefit from this one by far is that the new contract provider, which is in the public realm, Veolia, has identified that they believe that they can increase our recycling rates at our waste recovery centres by 5%. So a significant increase by them. And Mr Mayor, their way of doing that is by employing more people. So contrary to some of the media this week, what was missed in amongst that is that the contractor has made it very clear that their plan to increase recycling is actually by employing more people at our waste recovery centres. Mr Mayor, it's also been identified, and I think it's through significant work of the management and the WWE Directorate, of cost savings as well. That's cost savings directly in efficiency dividends, in being smarter about how we transport waste around the city and how we process it. It's also efficiency and savings in greater compaction rates at landfills. But for me, Mr Mayor, it's that 5% increase in recycling. It's a huge win, and I think I should finish again by acknowledging the huge piece of work done by city officers. So, Mr Mayor, I'll finish with this, actually, that the media attention this week around the staffing side of things.
I'll get the CEO to address that.
That's what I was hoping, Mr Mayor, that would be touched on, that would get addressed. But a huge congratulations to the Directorate. A 5% increase in recycling. What a massive win for our ratepayers.
I will get the CEO to address the staffing, but we'll do it after the debate on this motion. Anyone speak against the motion?
Just a question.
Question, Councillor Caldwell.
I'm actually not sure how much we can talk about this in open. I've got a question in relation to the table on page 97, so I don't know if that's...
We'll have to go to close. But just before we do that, do you mind if I see if other questions that can be dealt in open?
By all means.
Councillor Vorster.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I believe this can be dealt with in open. My question to you, or through you, is simply, should council endorse entering into this contract or executing this contract, is it council that still has the role of striking the fees and charges at our waste transfer stations? So in other words, does the contract permit Veolia to make representation?
Mr CEO.
Thank you.
Yes, in short. It will continue to be the role of the council to set those fees.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillors Caldwell, would you like to move into closed so we can go Pacific?
I never enjoy this, but I will move into closed just so I can talk about the numbers.
Second to Councillor Owen Jones. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, motion carry. Streaming is now back on. Can you open the rear door in case there's other officers might want to go and take some seat over there? Right. So the motion's there. Anyone want to speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Division's call.
Mayor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen-Jones, Councillor Gates, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? Motion carried unanimous. While we're on this item, councillors, Councillor Caldwell, would you like to ask a question regarding staffing?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. There's obviously been some public commentary about a number of positions, up to 70, that are impacted by the decision that we've just made. Through you to the CEO. Mr CEO, could you just address some of those concerns broadly and how the city has addressed them to date and what the plan will be moving forward? Mr CEO.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, councillors. So there are 3 points that I would make really clearly. So the first one has already been made by Councillor Hamill, which is that this opportunity and this decision that's been made today will deliver more jobs in this sector inside the city, and I think that's really important to understand. So the successful contractor has made it very clear that they will be employing more staff in this area. The second point I would like to make is that we have significant vacancy and we have significant contingent labour inside the city, which will enable that those 70 staff will be able to find homes somewhere else inside the city. Our strong preference is that those staff find a home inside the city, and we think we've got capacity to do that. And the third point I wanted to make is that we have been consulting with staff, we've been consulting with unions all the way through this process. And in general, we've received really strong and positive feedback about that consultation. So suggestions that this has come as a surprise, suggestions that staff need to be concerned are plainly false. And quite frankly, Mr Mayor, it's very disappointing that the articles have come out in the way they have, because it's simply not the case.
Okay. So hopefully we'll read that in the bulletin tomorrow. Councillors, we've done the motion. All good. Was unanimous. We're all happy. We go to 7.3, Councillor Hamill.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Where's the motion? Put it on the screen first. There it is. Second to Councillor Owen-Jones.
Mr Mayor, we are all aware that our city has a problem coming in the future, and that problem is in a very big state tax known as the waste levy. It's public information now that unless we start to adjust our recycling trends and increase recycling across the city, that within 10 years we will have a bill of $158 million a year to the state government on waste levy. So it is imperative that we start to make changes now to get higher recycling rates and reduce that waste levy. This piece of work, which is a significant move by the organisation and by elected officials if adopted today, really starts us on that process by introducing a green organic service to an additional 100,000 households in the city on top of the 50,000 households who have already opted in to date. By doing this, Mr Mayor, by putting green organic bins in another 100,000 households, we will remove 27,000 tonnes of green waste from landfill in the first year. Massive change, which in percentage-wise is another 5% increase in recycling, taking us with this item and the item beforehand from our plateaued recycling rate of the last few years of around 35, 36%, up to closer to 50% with these two items. Mr Mayor, I can't stress what an important step this is in the city's journey towards reducing our waste to landfill, reducing our cost of waste levy in the future, but also meeting community expectations. Because I can definitely talk for members of my division, and I feel like talking to other councillors from all across the city, that there is a stronger community feeling than ever that it is time to do more in this space. That a lot of talk in previous years, now it's time for a bit more action. This is hard action that will lead to direct results, not only increasing recycling, but reducing that waste levy that will impact every single one of our ratepayers in the future if we don't take bold action now. So commend the work of officers in bringing this together, commend them for being prepared to bring it forward now, and hope that those residents get on board with this and increase our green recycling rates and divert from landfill.
Yeah. Councillor Tozer?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I have a question that didn't come up in committee, but I've just realised that it's going to create some issues out in the hinterland. In item number 2, it talks about single unit dwellings between lot size of 250 metres squared and 5,000 metres squared. Throughout the hinterland, there's quite a number of streets with varying property lot sizes that might vary from 1 acre, which is about 4,400 square metres, up to maybe 1.5 acres, which is 6,000 square metres. And I didn't notice this in committee, but it occurs to me that based on the resolution here, some of the people in the street who already get a bin service may or may not get a green waste service, and I'd hate to think that inequity would occur. Is there a way we could address in the public forum here how those streets where one property owner meets that criteria and already receives a bin service, curbside bin service, can, everyone in that street can get what I would hate to think there was a bit of, haves and have-nots in some of the hinterland streets.
Yeah,
And then I've got a little change, we make the wording to probably wrap that up.
yeah, but just to get an answer, and then I'll come back to you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think Councillor would be willing to look at a broader rollout of this, just to capture some of those customers that you speak to. So I think these are general guidelines, but I think we'd be happy to to consider a broader rollout here.
Just let me go to Councillor Hamill for a second, because he's got some ideas there.
Mr Mayor, could I suggest for ease that we just, after exemptions, we'd have that would read with exemptions and inclusions were approved, and that gives discretion to the officers that if they identify a street where only one property is going to miss out, of course, we'd include in that street. It makes no sense for the truck to drive past it. So just with exemptions and inclusions could be added, I think would tidy up and give the officers ability to do exactly what they acting director
with exemption and
inclusions.
So, Mr Mayor, I had hoped that we might just remove the lot sizes and include exemptions. So then the officers can say, well, if they're under 250, we can exempt them, or if they're over a certain size, we can exempt them. If we just get the lot sizes out.
I think regarding the detail of square metres and things, we can come back after that they've done further work on it. But for today, regarding exemption and inclusion and giving the officers that ability, I think that's probably the way to go. I'll go back to the officer first. Can you not delete don't amend any motion unless I ask, or the motion. Councillor Hamill, you got?
Yeah, so Mr Mayor, I would not be supportive of removing that. There's very good reasons why the officers, the whole way through, for the several years, have always had a notion around what sizes works. There's been a lot of work going to identify why that 250 to 500 single detached dwelling works. So I would leave that as is, and I think that would be supported by the directorate, because there's been a lot of planning going to how this is going to roll out. But with that addition of inclusions means that we can pick up those few little things around the edges that can be added if need be.
Correct?
Yes, correct, Councillor Hamill.
Councillor Vorster.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. And I realise this is on grey paper, so I won't speak to it specifically, but on page 127 of the report, there's a heading that says Green Organics Exemption Guidelines, and it gives an example of when an exemption might apply. And Mr Mayor, I'm just trying to seek clarity, first of all, from city officers whether they intend to implement that particular exemption, or is that taken to be an in-principle guide? In other words, how much can I rely on the fact that that will be an exemption available to members of my community, or is it merely general policy direction to city officers?
Through you, Mr Mayor, these are guidelines which we will assess exemptions. I believe that the wording that's now been included in the recommendation gives us some bounds to review that on a case-by-case basis.
So, Mr Mayor, if I could just describe a particular estate and its circumstances and maybe get a response through you from city officers about how they may be accommodated. So I have a number of communities within Robina that look and feel like body corporates, right, community title schemes, but they're not. Everything is freehold. So these terrace homes have zero setbacks, so they're all built to boundary. They look like inner city Melbourne where you might drink an almond latte or whatever. That's what they do down there. And Mr Mayor, one of the problems with the historic development approval in these estates is that these homes have about like a 7-metre frontage to them. And the existing 2 bins on the day cause chaos, right? Because there's nowhere to really safely store the bins. People are storing them permanently in the road reserve. It's a big mess. Now, acknowledge putting a 3rd bin into the mix doesn't mean we will have 3 bins on the curb, because recycling and organics will alternate, at least for the moment. But one of the conditions of approval for that estate, Mr Mayor, was that the bins are to be stored in specific locations. Sometimes those locations are mandated in the development approval to be in people's garages. Sometimes there is a specific hard stand alongside the units where the bins are to be located. So we've got a local law that governs where these bins can be stored, but we also have development approval conditions that say that the bins need to be in particular locations on site. And I know that the storing of general waste in people's garages close to bedrooms has caused all manner of amenity issues, and I worry about mandating a green waste bin, which could become a FOGO bin, where we might have organic waste because of a development approval stored in people's garages for up to a week, causing more amenity issues in the home. So my question is, does a terrace-style home built to boundary meet the definition of a detached home, noting that it's freehold? And if it does, what are we going to do in situations where there is a development condition that mandates that a bin be located in a particular spot, but the bin enclosure that was constructed or the site that is mandated can't accommodate the 3rd bin?
Okay, with those specific things, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to get you to take it on notice?
Both. Can I provide an answer?
Okay.
Through you, Mr Mayor, one of the reasons why the lot size of 250 metres and the garden of 25 square metres, one reason why that has been identified in the guidelines is specifically for in the instance where there are small lots and we may not be able to practically accommodate 3 bins. So we will work with individuals, I think, where exclusions are appropriate. With respect to the specific question, if I'm able, I'd prefer to take that on notice and have council officers look at that in detail and come back to you with a more detailed response.
Okay. Right, Councillor Jones.
Mr Mayor, one of the interesting things that the Director has said during the committee meetings is one of the largest generators of emissions for the city is actually what we put into our landfills. So if indeed we want to be the greenest city in all of the land, we actually need to remove as much of that material out of the waste stream as possible. So whilst this is not an insignificant change in the way that we propose to collect waste from residential properties, it's a significant step forward in regards to changing the type of material that goes into landfill. So we've had a long battle to get to 50,000 ratepayers who have elected to pay a fee to have their green bins collected, and that's from memory about 50,000. Ratepayers at the moment pay an additional $55 a year for that service. This moves the balance of those residential ratepayers in the city into that service, and is, when people say what is the city doing about greenhouse emissions and the like, this is the single biggest thing that we will ever do in regards to reducing emissions in this city, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Anyone want to speak against the motion? The motion to all in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry it, unanimous. Councillor, any other item you wish to deal separately? Councillor Peter Young.
Mr Mayor, I have a conflict of interest in regard to item 6.4, please.
We go to 6.4, councillors.
The declaration was made at committee. Mr Mayor, I'll just ask you to note 6.4 asks council to note that certain allocations have been made for community grants for environmental purposes, and in one of those is a contribution made to the Nerang River Keepers. So my declaration is in relation to Mr Mark Tierney, who's a personal friend of mine, and he's also the leader of that group. I've had no discussions with Mark about the application, which, as I said, again, we're just noting that that money was already provided to them some time ago. So Nerang River Keepers undertakes a lot of good work in the community. They've rehabilitated a lot of the Nerang River and Crane Creek that runs into Nerang River. They do work at Country Paradise, exceptional work. They've planted probably 250,000 plants. They engage with the local community, and so I think it's a worthwhile contribution that the city's made, but my conflict is obviously there, and I'm seeking council's permission to participate in the vote because I think that the nature of our friendship is remote in the sense of this being just a noted report, and my participation would make it clear to the community that there's no conflict. I've had no involvement in it.
Okay, Councillor Tozer.
Mr Mayor, at the committee, I think I've moved the motion on the screen.
Thank you. Who would second that? Second to Councillor O'Neill. Anyone want to speak against the motion on the screen? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Can you call it out, please?
Mayor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen-Jones, Councillor Gates, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? Councillor Peter Young did not vote. I guess Councillor Tozer.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to move the committee recommendation to quickly speak to it.
Moved by Councillor Tozer, second Councillor O'Neill. Speak further on it.
Mr Mayor, we allocated some funding some time ago to a number of organisations who engage in citizen science, and one of the things that they did were participatory activities where the community could get engaged in improving our environment. And one of the things that is a cane toad, we collected 23,000 cane toads. Now that might not seem like a big deal to you, but that's actually a really great example of the community getting behind government and actually improving our environment. The other thing that we did was we went through all the creeks and tried to work out where all the platypus were. There's been this, perception in the community that the environment is degrading in our area, but there's more platypuses than ever, and it's pretty exciting. There's 55 identified platypus through the Platypus Watch program, and they're just two. And today I'm wearing my platypus socks because tonight is the City of Gold Coast Environmental Awards, and some of the people who have been. Yay! Look at you. So I suppose the point I'm trying to make is that these catchment and citizen science grants will actually be recognised by the city tonight. They might not seem, we're obviously making some light humour about them right now, but they're actually profoundly important to our city, and the important thing that they do is get the community involved in the extensive activity that our government is undertaking, and we're working with people who are passionate about the environment and funding them to kind of do that work, and it's actually resulting in really good environmental outcomes, many of which will be acknowledged tonight. I wanted to pick out one in particular. There were 3 grants allocated to an organisation called Watergum, and the chairperson of Watergum is a guy called Wal Mayer, and he was named the National Individual Land Carer of the Year this year. So not just in our city, but the best land carer, individual land carer in all of Australia. And I think that's a testament not just to the work that Wal's done and the work that he does in his community in Austinville and throughout Division 9, but also with other groups throughout the city. But it's also an acknowledgement that the funding that we're pointing towards organisations like Watergum are helping the community understand what we do when it comes to our environment and raising the city's profile as a local government that really cares about engaging the community in that sort of activity. So just, yeah, I think the committee should, the council should resolve what we recommended at committee and move forward. It's good. And you should all the councillors should come along to the environmental awards tonight.
Okay. Anyone want to speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, motion carried, unanimous. Any items, other items? Councillor O'Neill.
Mr Mayor, it would be remiss of me not to pull out 8.1, and it was a vote of thanks that was moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Hamill to the staff involved in the resource recovery services.
I'll just take your motion moved by you, seconded by Councillor Hamill. Speak on the motion.
Yeah, it was a vote of thanks, and I think it's worth pulling it out today to speak on the record that we really appreciate all the staff that were involved in the recovery services contract, particularly given the length of time, and they acted with professionalism and courtesy, and they remain committed to the city, Mr Mayor. So it's been a very long process, one that we've dealt with in the committee over probably 2 years plus, and I can't speak more highly of the Director and his staff. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm assuming no speaking against. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, motion carried, unanimous. Any other items you want to deal separately, councillors? Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I move that the remaining recommendations of the Water, Waste and Energy Committee be adopted.
Second, Councillor Peter Young. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, carry, unanimous. Thank you. Councillors, we now go to planning. Do you want a 5-minute break, councillors? All right, we'll come back at 10:45. We good? streaming on. Very good, eh? The defence was good. Okay, here we go. Councillors, where are we? No, it was good. Planning and Environment. Councillor Caldwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Move the agenda.
No, you can't on this one.
I think should we take guidance from Councillor Castro on this or not? I don't know.
One at a time. Bob's going to go through the agenda. Bob, the planning ones are in the white paper.
Mr Mayor, I move that the report of the Planning and Environment Committee meeting held on Thursday the 24th of November 2022, covered by recommendations 1 to 12, be received.
Seconder, Councillor Gates. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Councillor Taylor, you going to put your hand up or not? Against? Motion carried. Right, councillors, we're going to do 6.3. Councillor Gates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm going to be leaving the room for items 6.3, 6.5 and 6.7. I made all of those declarations. You're wanting to deal with 6.3 first?
We're going with 6.3, and
Okay.
we're going to get your declaration for all three of them.
Okay, Mr Mayor.
And I'll go ahead and do 3, 5 and 7, and then you can come back in.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, so 6.3 was a prescribed interest because of a donation from Hickey Lawyers, who were the lawyers to the project, and also from Home Corp, who were the applicants. 6.5, I'm sorry about this. 6.5, Mr Mayor, related to donations from the Empire Group and the Stevens Group, and it relates to the expansion of the Yatala Enterprise area, not that landowner specifically, but I wanted to make that declaration and leave the room while that vote is undertaken. And there was also a donation from Kevin Seymour on the east side of the highway and the Seymour Group. So that was in relation to 6.5, and that should be on the screen as well. And then in relation to, there was also a RPS with a $675 donation in 2011. And in relation to 6.7, Mr Mayor, I had a donation from both WH Heck and Gold Coast Marine Aquaculture, and this item related to the preliminary investigation into the Steglitz Northern Marine Precinct. So I'll be leaving the room for that one as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, councillors, I'm going to 6.3. Councillor Caldwell, you want to move something there?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Happy to move the committee recommendation.
Seconder, Councillor Peter Young. You want to speak further on that?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Worcester.
I might reserve the right to...
Sure. And look, I'll be very short. Look, Mr Mayor, at committee I gave what I thought was a full-throated dissenting view on the officer's report, because I'm still not personally satisfied that the methodology supported by city officers and the strategy taken by the applicant and their consultants ended up with the best outcome. In my view, it didn't protect the public interest, and city officers at the time acknowledged that we didn't end up with 2 perfect approvals. While the committee, with the exception of myself, voted to support the city officer recommendation, I hope that city officers reflect on the difficulties associated with the assessment process and can provide stronger guidance to future applicants around what the most appropriate and transparent way of progressing their development applications are. I won't be voting to support it, but I fully accept that there's no monopoly on good ideas, and it's up to the council in the majority to decide which way forward. Thank you.
I think that's given. Councillor Caldwell, closed. Put the motion to you. Would you want to call division? Division.
Mayor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen-Jones, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Pauline Young and Councillor O'Neill.
Against?
Councillor Vorster and Councillor McDonald.
No, she's not in the room. So, motion carried. It's okay, it's okay. Yeah, you just put there absent is Councillor Gates. She's not in the room. But when you add the two figures up, there's 15. There should only be 14, right? Okay, good.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll move next to item 6.7.
No, isn't it 6.5? That.
I was just going to do 6.7 next, and then Councillor Hamill needs to depart, and then they both return. So
okay, 6.7.
6.7 next.
Okay.
Happy to move the recommendation.
Seconder, Councillor Peter Young.
Yes.
Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Actually, we'll call division on that.
Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? Motion carried unanimous. Councillor Caldwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. We'll move to item 6.5, and Councillor Hamill has a declaration for this one.
Councillor Hamill.
Mr Mayor, the report has some mapping in it which identifies the extent of the investigation area. My residential property isn't inside the investigation area but immediately adjoins it. For that reason, the perception of interest of a conflict is way too high, so I'll be choosing to leave the room on this one.
Okay. Councillor Caldwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to move the committee recommendation.
Seconder, Councillor Peter Young. Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry unanimous. Could you recall Councillor? I think all three can come back, huh? Or two, yeah. Just testing you.
You keep on angling for that extra councillor.
Sorry, is that the one from Tambourine? Oh no, too soon.
Oh, just have another.
Another sweep. I think you were counting your 2 votes, Mr.
Just for those viewers to know, it's not Scottish. Red Bull.
Sorry, Councillor Gates can come back as well, Sandy. Sorry.
Yeah. We've done 3, 7 and 5. And...
So, Mr Mayor, we're going to move to 6.8 next.
Okay.
And I'll just say at the outset, both myself and Councillor Gates had raised conflicts of interest at committee.
Okay, let me confirm this with the CEO. Mr CEO, is this an ordinary business?
Mr Mayor, I can confirm that the Acting General Counsel has provided advice and that it is ordinary business.
Councillor Caldwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. And on that basis, I don't propose to remake the declaration that was made at committee, and I will elect to stay in the room, obviously, as a result of that.
Business. Okay. So we're all staying in for ordinary. Okay, Councillor Gates.
Mr Mayor, I just seek absolute clarification, if I may. I'm a beneficiary of a trust from Sanctuary Cove who made a submission to this item. Now, I'm just seeking an assurance that I am able to stay in the room because it is a matter of ordinary business.
All right.
I made the declaration at City
Do you want me to
Planning.
go to Joan? Or you?
I can do it.
Councillor, Mr CEO?
Through you, Mr Mayor, and at the risk of repeating myself, the advice has been provided in writing to all councillors via email that this is ordinary business.
We're in.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I would like to move the item, but with a different set of wording. And I believe that the Minute Secretary will have that wording available.
Can you just read out the?
I'll give you
the amended. I think showed me it was in red.
It sounds like horrifically technical language, but what I'll say is
just the amended part of it.
Basically, there was a particular item that related to the Gilgai Road extension, which was listed in Table 1, Item 1, and supporting attachments. Now, when the matter went to public advertising, it was in a certain cohort of years for expected completion. It went out to public consultation that way. There was then some internal discussions between council officers, which led to an internal proposal being made to bump it out to a later period of time, which is ultimately what the officer recommendation was that went to committee. Now, this matter had been bumped forward from committee to today in order to deal with the matter generally because of the uncertainty around the ordinary business matter. But in dealing with the matter proper, we would then like to move an amendment to what the officer's recommendation was.
I'll just say it's on the screen in red.
On the screen, to the effect that the Gilgai Connection Road remains in the proposed cohort of timing, which was in the advertised version of the LGIP.
Okay. And if you go to the last paragraph on the screen, please, that's another part of it. Councillor, I just when this was brought to my attention, I'm satisfied that value engineering. I'd want to have a look at value engineering, being a civil engineer myself, and it doesn't affect that. So just to assure that I'll be coming into the committee and thinking through on that part of it. So seconder on that one, Councillor Gates. In that case, you want to speak further on that, Councillor?
Well, just briefly, insofar as it's a really important thing for the general public to be aware of, that we often hear about the need for infrastructure and infrastructure that's growth related to be delivered by council. And the LGIP is our statutory obligation, but it is an important body of work because it sets the parameters for which we want to try and achieve the delivery of new infrastructure and upgraded infrastructure to deal with growth. And that is exactly what LGIP does. So this is a step in the process, but it's a very important process in explaining to the community that we actually have a local government infrastructure plan and that this is what it is.
Okay. Speaking against the motion, Councillor Peter Young.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I won't be supporting the motion. I won't speak at length about this, but my concern is about the nature of this particular project and the timing of it. It's an extremely expensive project, and my understanding is it provides limited, it's meeting a limited demand, whereas I'm conscious of other roads in the city that have a much more significant demand now and will in the future, and we don't have the same kind of timing anticipated in LGIP to provide upgrades to those roads, and I can't in full conscience represent the people and support this kind of diversion of expenditure, which I think is chiefly going to achieve great outcomes associated with the Green Heart, and in that respect I support it, but not at the to the detriment of other projects. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Jones.
Mr Mayor, I'm just going to support the item itself, and I'll briefly touch on the Green Heart part of it. I think, so whilst it's an incredibly expensive piece of infrastructure that is proposed, councillors have the benefit of a officers' briefing during the week where the proposed plan of action for the city officers over the coming decade or so was pretty much laid out, and it made today's decision, in my mind, a lot clearer. So the benefit of that workshop, I think, would have helped inform the position. My view is that the infrastructure, the LGIP 2 that we're proposing today is actually our core business, and that's why I'm going to support it. And in particular, it's our core business around the infrastructure networks that we're actually responsible for the delivery of. So if anything, if our friends in the state government could follow the council's lead and establish a long-term infrastructure delivery plan for all of the networks that the state's responsible for, that is cohesive and works with the city's infrastructure plan, I think then we would be going a long way towards delivering what residents of the city want in regards to managing growth.
Speaking against the motion.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, can I beg your indulgence to respond to, or to help perhaps inform Councillor Peter Young's actual vote based on some further information that I teased out from city officers? Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Gilgai Connection Road, which I affectionately call the Robina Parkway duplication, is not located in Division 11. It's not within my local boundary. However, I'm a big proponent of the project because I recognise that it will provide benefits to the whole of the city. And what was interesting to me, Mr Mayor, when I had a discussion with city officers, is there was a view that perhaps Gilgai Connection Road, or Gilgai Road Extension, Robina Parkway duplication, whatever we call it, could be perhaps delivered not at a trunk standard. And that would probably reflect the anticipated demand that city officers were working with, which I think is in the order of between 7,000 and 10,000 vehicles a day. Mr Mayor, what occurred to me when I was chatting with city officers is that that position doesn't make a lot of sense, because the Green Heart, since LGIP 1, right, has been identified as trunk infrastructure. The park itself is trunk infrastructure. The sports fields within the park are trunk infrastructure. The open space within the park are trunk infrastructure. And it seemed a bit odd to me that the road that would make it all possible would not be considered trunk infrastructure. So when I asked city officers, well, why are we in this position? They explained to me, well, look, if we have to build it to trunk infrastructure standard, it will cost this much more. It's a lot of money. But I did ask the question, well, who sets the standard? Who sets the desired standard of service for trunk infrastructure for a road of this type? I'm assuming it must be the state government, right? No, it turns out it's us. So, in a way, we could be shooting ourselves in our own foot by having a gold-plated standard, right, and then trying to design to that standard, when in actual fact we may have an opportunity to value engineer a road that meets the anticipated traffic, but also unlocks the recreational potential of the site. Mr Mayor, what was most surprising to me, though, is city officers revealed to me in discussions that the traffic volume that they anticipated was informed by the population growth model, which we had developed to inform the preparation of the LGIP, which is a great model, by the way. But through you, Mr Mayor, to Councillor Peter Young, the model uses a set of assumptions, and those assumptions do not consider the actual demand that the Green Heart itself will induce into the area. So when city officers, as they explained it to me, look at 7,000 vehicle movements a day, they're not having regard to the 10,000 kids that will be playing weekend sport in the Green Heart every weekend, and they're not having regard to the 50,000 people who will be visiting the Green Heart for events and activation. So to say that you cannot support, with all due respect, that you cannot support delivery of this road to trunk standard because of modelling isn't a strong argument, because the final model will have to anticipate all of the demand that we will be inducing into the park, and then very much we have no choice. The other point I'll make, Mr Mayor, is that we hope that this will be an Olympic Games legacy project, right? We all want this to be a legacy of the council and a legacy of the Games. If we suggest that this project, which will unlock the precinct, should occur after the Olympic Games, it sends a very concerning signal to the state government and federal government about our desire to see this project delivered for the city. And it's a project that won't just be about the 2 weeks of sport, it will be about those 10,000 kids from Nerang, from Coomera, from Willow Vale, from North Kira, from Palm Beach, from Burleigh, who will use that precinct, Mr Mayor. And as much as we would love them to catch public transport, ultimately many of them will have to drive. And the question is, are we going to give them a safe and easy way of doing it? I think we have to. I think we have to do it. And just in closing, Mr. Mayor, most of the projects in our LGIP, and to Councillor Owen-Jones's point, we're dealing with the whole of the LGIP today. Most of the projects in the LGIP have not gone through detailed design and value engineering. So to prejudice this project will actually require you to prejudice every other project in the LGIP. The work of design has not yet been done. But unless we put it on a map, we have no moral authority and legal standing to compel developers to make a contribution towards that project. I think that's what they need to be doing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Against the motion, Councillor Gates.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, for Councillor Young's benefit, he clearly hasn't had the benefit of a briefing, and nor have you, Mr. Mayor. I've tried to give you a summary which isn't quite as succinct as perhaps Councillor Vorster's this morning, but I can understand why Councillor Young feels the way he does, because until this is value engineered and another alternative put before me, I would not be able to support the current level of trunk that we have established for this to move forward. I question actually whether it is trunk infrastructure, even though the parkland certainly is. But so I can quite understand why Councillor Young feels the way he does, but we lose nothing today by supporting this and allowing it to stay as advertised. It actually saves us re-advertising. So it stays as it is, it doesn't get re-advertised, and we deal with the intimate details of that particular road as we progress.
Speaking against the motion, Councillor Caldwell to close.
That's fine. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Put the motion to you, division. All in favour, show of hands.
Mayor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen-Jones, Councillor Gates, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? Abstain? Just put your hand up for abstain.
I'll just abstain, Mr. Mayor, because I'm not against the fundamental.
Abstain. Motion carries super majority. Councillor Caldwell, where are we going?
Let's go to 6.4 next, Mr. Mayor.
6.4, Councillor Gates.
That one's for me, Mr. Mayor, to make a declaration which I am seeking permission of the council to remain in the room. I made the declaration at Planning Committee. It related to the Robina Central Planning Review, and my declaration indicated that I received a gift from Robina Projects, who are not specifically mentioned but are most definitely related through conversations I've had with Councillor Vorster. So they're stakeholders, and in 2016 they provided me with a donation of $1,250. I seek to remain in the room. I've had no discussion with any party related to this application. Is it an application or approach? It's a review.
Okay, there's a procedural motion on the screen. Councillor, who moved the... move Councillor Vorster, seconder. Councillor Caldwell. Anyone speak against the motion? Put the motion to you, all in favour, show of hands.
Mayor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen-Jones, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? Councillor Gates did not vote. Motion carried. Councillor Caldwell?
Happy to move the committee recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Move. Seconder. Councillor Vorster. You'd like to speak further on that? Anyone speak against? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry. Unanimous. Councillor Caldwell, where are we going next?
I was just going to check with Councillor Gates. I've got marked here that Councillor Gates remained in the room on 6.6, but I can't remember whether we actually ended up making a declaration.
I don't have it on my list there.
No. So I think, Mr. Mayor, that's probably all the
conflict. I'll go to Councillor Owen-Jones in that case.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 6.1, and if I can have somebody second me on, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Hamill, seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was an item that I had asked to come to the council purely so that we could actually have on record evidence of a dual occupancy or a dual dwelling in an established environment where change is happening. So our current city plan allows for one to be split into two, particularly in corner blocks. Helensvale is of a generation that it was built between 1980 and 1995. There's a significant number of blocks, Mr Mayor, that are more than 800 square metres in size, some 300 of them, and that provides landowners with rights under our city plan to effectively do 2 out of 1. In this case, it's a corner lot, and as you know, Mr Mayor, with corner lots, we've sought to be able to lightly salt and pepper change through established communities, and this is a really good example of that. So we had, and this was not code accessible because it's slightly less than the 400 square metres, so it was subject to public advertising. There was one submission that actually wasn't clear in terms of what they were opposed to, but the officers have gone through the process of assessing it, and I was very keen for this to be on the public record because we've got about 180 blocks in Helensvale on corners where this might happen, and this is a really good exemplar in my mind as to what change might look like, and it's a way of subtly and quietly changing the way a suburb looks, but allowing 2 vehicle crossovers on 2 separate streets, and this is what we might have traditionally called a duplex approval, but it doesn't have a common wall, so it's a detached duplex. And I think that it's a good outcome. It's got slightly less than 50% site coverage, and very broadly speaking, when completed, it'll be 2 brand new properties, and it'll hopefully add value to streets, Mr Mayor.
Oh, good. Anyone speak against the motion? Do you need to close further?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Put the motion to you, councillors. All in favour, show of hands. Against, motion carried. Any other items, Councillor Owen Jones?
Mr Mayor, 6.2 I move to committee, and I'm happy to move the committee's recommendation.
Seconder, Councillor Vorster? No?
No, sorry, I had an amendment that...
Let me ask for a seconder. Councillor Gates, do you want to hear the speaking for, and then perhaps you might want to tweak your amendment?
We had a full-throated, I've used that twice now. We had a robust discussion at committee, Mr Mayor. I do have some words that city officers assisted in ahead of this meeting. Perhaps to make it easier, I might suggest what those words are, and Councillor Owen Jones may choose to accept them or not, and then I don't have to speak.
Councillor Owen Jones, I'll yield to what you think.
We've had Councillor Vorster be full-throated twice today, Mr Mayor, so I'd appreciate hearing what he has to say because I don't have a monopoly on good ideas, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Vorster.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. So, to bring you up to speed, we at committee we considered an application which some could argue would create a dominant built form from what is a very iconic neighbourhood, Koala Park, here on the southern end of the Gold Coast. And one of the ways of ameliorating the concerns of residents, and in order to satisfy city officers, they proposed the planting of 2 trees in each of the 2 dwellings that were proposed to be created. But Mr Mayor, those 2 trees were at a 200 litre bag size, and it would be open to the ultimate owners of that property to prune and manage that tree in the way that they saw fit. Now, we would hope that people would care for those trees responsibly, but if there were aggressive tree management tactics used by those owners or perhaps future owners down the track, what we could end up with is not creating the canopy on which city officers relied on in order to support the development application. So to overcome that, Mr Mayor, what city officers did was they proposed some words to capture an approach that I've taken in Division 11, which is to lift the bag size of the trees from 200 litres to 400 litres, and also to require that the trees be managed by the property owners in keeping with arboricultural standards. And that way we will end up with the density that the applicant wishes to create, that the community arguably needs, but we will also ensure that there is a green element to the frontage of those buildings, which is what's fundamentally required under the planning scheme. It's just giving these trees the best possible start, Mr Mayor, and ensuring that they're looked after, and so that this development complements the aesthetic and the character of Koala Park.
Okay. Councillor Jones, what's your thought on...
So, Mr Mayor, I appreciate Councillor Vorster's view, but my thoughts are that the officer's recommendation was sufficient and that the size of the root ball ultimately is a function of time, and what we're proposing here is, again, 2 dual occupancies, not dissimilar to the Helensvale project, slightly smaller in terms of land area, and the trees were proposed in the report to be on the landowner's side of the fence. Mr Mayor, when we plant street trees, the city's got quite an aggressive street tree planting program. We use a 100-litre root ball, and I actually had a chat to one of our city officers during the week about this, and one of the reasons we use the 100-litre root ball is not only because it makes it easier in regards to the placement adjacent to city services, but it also allows the officers to tease out the roots, and it's not a root-bound ball, which generally happens as with the larger root sizes. And so the difference between a 100-litre and a 400-litre is notionally 3 years of growth, Mr Mayor. I'd like to err on the side of caution in the context of saying that a property owner for a brand spanking new duplex in Koala Park, which we all like, would most likely be paying over $1.2, $1.3, $1.5 million for that new property, and I would like to think that they would be incredibly house proud, and I'd actually like the city to stay out of their front yard and policing the regulation of the pruning of their trees and leave it for the resident to do. I think that our city officers have got far more to do than go around doing development compliance work a couple of years after a tree's been planted. So that's the long way of saying if I could keep the officer's recommendation, I'd prefer
Do you want to speak further on your motion? Because
only in terms of I actually thought that it was an interesting series of events that saw 2 effectively duplexes or dual occupancy corner blocks turn up at planning, and I think that they provide the city and landowners with a really clear idea of what some of the conditions they may face if they put in a development application in accordance with the city plan. So the Helensvale one is on a larger block, and it's creating 2 from 1 from a larger block. This is creating 2 from 1 from a smaller block. But I think the challenge is that our city plan allows for this type of development to be salt and peppered throughout established estates and established communities. But I think we heard at the committee that there was some 8 or 10 corner blocks in Koala Park, which is clearly significantly less than Helensvale. But I think that this is the first, and the city plan allows for there to be more, but it doesn't allow for every block in Koala Park to be divided into 2.
Okay. Councillor Vorster, did you want to move? Now you've heard the speaking for the motion. You wish to move an amended motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to take that opportunity, and for reasons which I feel are pretty important.
Okay. So do I have a seconder? So seconder? No. Councillor Tozer, you're talking to me. Do you wish to seconder? Councillor Tozer? Second the Councillor Gates? Okay, no, we'll just get the amendment motion there. Is that in? While that's happening, I'll come to the question, Councillor Gates.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I was actually looking for the area of open space that's available for the planting of these trees, because I recall when we had an absolutely clean slate for development in Northern Gold Coast, and there's far smaller lots, as everyone knows, in Northern Gold Coast. And I can recall being advised that because of the size of the allotments, many of them would not have the capacity to actually have very large trees on those allotments. So I was just wondering what the area is and whether there was anyone here who could advise us in that regard, because I simply know that I was told by parks officers at the time that the area of many of the backyards or front yards in the newer developed areas could not sustain large trees.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So the officers considered the 200-litre bag size and also a 400-litre bag size and recommended the 200-litre bag size because of the size of the space that's available. That was deemed to be the size tree that would have the best chance of viability based on the space that's available. So I don't have the specifics in front of me in terms of the exact amount of space, but it was recommended for a 200-litre bag size based on the space that is available.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Vorster.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'm moving an amendment and I'll probably lose, which I'll make peace with.
Well, no, I think you're a good presenter. You never know.
Yeah, fair enough, Mr Mayor. We all have open and persuadable minds. Look, Mr Mayor, colleagues, let's reflect on something Councillor Owen-Jones said. The difference between a 100-litre bag and a 400-litre bag is 3 years. If you're persuaded to stick with the officer recommendation because it's a smaller tree, you need to accept that eventually the 200-litre tree will grow to have an equivalent bag size of 400 litres. And at some time, that bag size might be 600 litres, and eventually, in the fullness of time, 1,000 litres. Trees grow. Now, Councillor Owen-Jones has relied on some advice, which is that a 200-litre bag allows you to agitate the root ball, overcome the girdling which might occur in the bag, and give the tree a good start, so it establishes itself. My understanding is that we're dealing with a development that is a knockdown rebuild, which actually gives the applicant an opportunity to work unencumbered by any fences, by any structures, to dig the right sized hole to give this tree at 400 litres, in my view, the very same good start. So then why am I so passionate about the 400 litres? Well, it relies on this, Mr Mayor. While the city plan may open up the possibility of subdivision and dual occupancies, the community is still grappling with the reality of seeing these things pop up. I think we have more contentious discussions about two-lot subdivisions than we do anything else, and that's because it's still unexpected from the community. Technically permitted, but still unexpected. And we have a role, I feel, to begin setting a pretty, I wouldn't say a high benchmark, but a reasonable benchmark to ensure that when these developments do occur, they're meeting absolutely the highest reasonable standard. And Mr Mayor, during the committee presentation, one of the reasons why city officers supported this development application was because, and I quote from the presentation, the generous landscaping. So having regard to generous landscaping is one of the reasons city officers want us to support this. And it leads me to think, well, what's more generous? A 200-litre tree where a future owner is able to prune this thing into a stump, and I've seen that happen all too often because people would prefer having more sunlight than shade, more view than vegetation. Or is it more generous to have a 400-litre tree which will give instant amenity and that generous landscaping that city officers actually ultimately want? It just gives us the ability to deliver a future outcome a little bit earlier. Mr. Mayor, we have all seen street trees on nature strips, public trees, absolutely smashed up, cut up, obliterated by members of the public. We've seen that happen, I'm sure, in our divisions. And when that happens, there are local law investigations that try and identify who damaged the tree, and we try and make good, and we go to the expense of replacing those trees. So for Councillor Owen-Jones to suggest that this might be a little bit of overreach, which will add burden to the way that we go managing streetscape, I think is actually a little bit incorrect, because we're doing it ourselves anyway for our council-owned trees. 400 litres gives us the canopy we need. It gives us the generous landscaping that we need to support the application, and will ensure that this tree gets looked after. And ultimately, it puts that cost onto the homeowner so that we don't have to do it ourselves if the tree was located on the nature strip and we had to deal with people mishandling it. I think this sets a really good benchmark, and for whatever it's worth, colleagues, when we have applied the very same conditions to development applications in Robina, so the corner of Newport Drive and Manly Drive, for example, which was basically the same application, there was no concern from the applicant. They warmly received it, and they recognised that as the trade-off in extracting density from a low-density area. This isn't medium density, it's low density, so that we're willing to deliver density and vegetation, that we're happy. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor wants to speak against the amendment. I'll go to Councillor Jones for the last
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We've had full-throated today, and we've also had the word girdling introduced to the council for the first time. So, and we've had pruning in an Edward Scissorhand-like fashion, but I think ultimately what we do have is we have to provide a sense of consistency in regards to how the city does its development applications and what we expect from applicants. And this is not necessarily a developer. This is, all applications are notionally from developers, but this is the classic 2 out of 1. So this is what any Gold Coaster may choose to do with their investment in our city. I would like to think that we've talked about a generous landscaping. That was the plan that was proposed by the actual applicant through the process. There was a generous landscape proposed, and the tree and the canopy. I think the officer's original condition talked about a 3-metre tree, in addition to the size of the root ball. And I think that sits on the private side of the fence, and I would like to think that the future owner of this house will be like lots of other owners on the Gold Coast and be incredibly house proud and be happy with the generous landscaping that has been provided from their new home, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Councillor, we're going for the vote. To be clear, we're voting for the amendment. Okay? So the amendment we're talking about, so... No, the amended motion, no, yeah, it just is for...
I'm not sure the correct language, but my understanding is we're talking about an amendment right now. If it is successful, it'll be an amended motion, but maybe I'm using the language wrong.
Yeah, we're voting for the amended motion. Okay. Councillors, you ready to go? Any other questions? No, we're good? For the amendment, show of hands. Against the amendment, show of hands. The amendment is lost. So we go back to the original motion. Councillor Tozer.
Mr Mayor, you're happy to receive someone speaking against?
No, we go to for the motion first, and if it's none, I'll come back to you.
Okay. Whatever you like.
Anyone for the motion? Councillor Caldwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I do so just reflecting on the efforts to try and improve it through that amended motion, and I was sympathetic to it because I noticed that on the Helensvale version of this that we just resolved, there was a 3-metre tall requirement for two-headed, out-of-ground pandanus trees, and quite frankly, I think that the least we could do is expect the same for Koala Park as we do for Helensvale. So I'm a little bit disappointed at that, but nonetheless. This is
Councillor Caldwell, just keep going.
But Mr Mayor, this is one of the ways that we are dealing with sprinkling density into our city whilst maintaining a compact urban form. And so we have to do this well, and notwithstanding the fact that I would have preferred the 400 to the 200 litre tree, this overall on balance is a good outcome and one that I think should be welcomed into the neighbourhood. But the process worked because there was a significant examination of this through the entire planning process. So the officers undertook their assessment and the general public is allowed to make submissions, and we then have an ability to make sure that we are managing the impacts of this development on the adjoining neighbourhood. And I reflect on the way that this will be more frequent into the future than less, and it's important that we send the message now to the community that we are looking at these very closely to make sure that we are sprinkling them as we hoped, to make sure that they still fit in with the character of areas, and overall that people can move into neighbourhoods and become a part of that community like everyone else who lives in Koala Park. And I'm sure that the occupants of these dwellings in due course will be viewed as being great people and great parts of the community, but now we're going to have two families instead of one, and that's not a bad thing on this location. So on that basis, I'm happy to support the motion.
Against? Councillor Tozer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not on the planning committee, but I had the pleasure of attending and just kind of watching this because I was interested in the differences between 6.1, which is already resolved in Helensvale, and 6.2, which is a very similar dual occupancy application in Burleigh Heads, in a place that I drive past relatively regularly. Koala Park is the place I let my kayak out on a regular basis with my wife. And I was profoundly interested in how the difference, like the impact assessment process. So there's this 400 metre threshold for lot sizes. So that's the threshold, and it becomes a code assessable application if it's above 400. But once it goes below 400, it becomes an impact assessable application. That's the threshold measure that we use in order to determine the level of assessment. And it occurred to me the Helensvale application was 396 square metres, which is just below that 400 threshold. So I looked at that and thought, you know what, that I can understand how that would be perceived by the general community as generally acceptable. And then I looked at the Burleigh Heads one, the Koala Park one, and I saw 272 square metres. The other thing that I thought was interesting between the two is that in Helensvale there was only one objection. The community seemed relatively, open to the idea, not having been particularly interested for or against. Whereas in Koala Park, there was a very mobilised group of people who had views about this sort of development in the area, and there was 39 properly made submissions objecting to it and 5 properly made submissions in favour. And I think that's actually something to think about when we start thinking about how small is too small when we are considering an impact assessable application. In this case, it's a 32% or 31.8% reduction from that 400 square metre threshold, whereas the other was a 1% reduction from that 400 square metre threshold, 4 metres difference. Frankly, it went past what I'm willing to accept. I like the look of the houses in Koala Park as they're proposed. I think they've navigated quite a lot of the other metrics that we might assess and carefully look at. But to me, 272 square metres, for the person walking past on the street, they're going to see that and it's going to be too small for them. It's not what we expect. If we really want that sort of density, we should rezone that area medium density. And I appreciate there'll be other implications to that, but I don't think that sort of reduction from the threshold is acceptable. I don't think it meets a community test. I don't think the community expect us. I think they think that we'll use some discretion and impact accessible process for, I don't know, maybe 10%. 4 metres is okay, as in Helensvale, with generally little interest. But a 272 square metre allocation of land for a dual occupancy just is too small, and the community has told us that by the submissions that have been made. We actually do, as a council, need to make a call on that, and I appreciate many of my colleagues will go 272 is pretty common in our area. she'll be right, mate. But this is the first in this area, and it's not supported by the community, evidently by the submissions made. We shouldn't be going in that direction when the community is so strongly against it, and it is such a reduction from that threshold where we are assessing the impact. Frankly, I hope that councillors will refuse this application, notwithstanding the council officer's recommended approval. And I think it's not the kind of outcome we want until the city plan changes, where we can clearly communicate to the community that that 272 is acceptable. Because at the moment, frankly, I don't think our city plan says it is.
Councillor Pauline Young.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And we seem to be going backwards and forwards between Helensvale and Koala Park here. But when we're talking the Helensvale 3 metre high pandanus, our landscape plans are put in by our applicant. So there's quite obviously they probably requested it and nominated they'd like a 3 metre high pandanus in each yard. So with a 300 ml root size. So to say that's a benchmark that we're setting when potentially, as applicants, they all have the right to request what they'd like to plant there, and then our officers condition that. So I think our officers have given us very good information today on the size of the tree that they feel would go further, would be supported in that area. And on the yes, they do grow, trees do grow, but I think we'd be very naive as a council to say that a 200 metre tree might be pruned to death, whereas a 300 or 400 size ball tree won't be pruned to death. So once those applicants have purchased the site and purchased what they've got there, what they do going forward, we as a city hope that they're going to do the right thing, but to say someone who's got a 200 mil size ball tree is not going to look after it as to someone who's got a 400 is quite naive upon any of us. So,
councillors,
we've got within Koala Park there potentially 6 to 8 corner sites. We're looking at for that gentle scattering, which is what our plan talks about. This is the first of these going in on this corner site there. Potentially they may not happen going forward in the future, but this is the first one in the area. It's been given a very robust assessment by our officers. It's been given a recommendation on the size of the trees that need planting, and I think it'll be a great addition to that small pocket in there, as well as the corridor there down Tabalban Street. So I will be supporting it today.
Okay. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, and I did listen online to this.
Are you speaking for or against?
For.
No, just I have to ask for against, and then I'll come back to you. Against, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This application is in my division, and as it was mentioned before, there's 39 objections to this impact application. The reason being that it is under the 400 square metres, and it's major concern for those residents in the area. And if anyone has cared to look at the map of the planning area, the pink part is the medium density, and the light pink area is the low density. Now, if council sees fit to approve this application, will mean the encroachment into this area. Only last council meeting, we discussed Tabalban Street, where there's over 9,000 vehicles a day that use that street. And as the population grows, it's going to become more busier. And this particular development is in Tabalban, on the corner of Parnu and Tabalban Street. The residents are very concerned that this doesn't really retain or enhance the local character and amenity of the area. And the scale and intensity is really encroaching on that low density residential area. And we must maintain that, just to maintain the character of Koala Park. It's a unique little area of the Gold Coast. Why spoil it? Because this will be the start of developing some of these corner blocks in there with high density. Just across the road from this, there's very high density development. But by encroaching across the other side of the road where Parnu is, you're encroaching into that low density area. The concern is real in there. The residents are very concerned about, if this is approved by council, what the impact it's going to have in that area. I cannot support this. I don't think that would be a very good decision. And like it was mentioned before, you know, this is 272 square metres, and like Councillor William Owen Jones raised in Helensvale, it's a big difference between 396 square metres to 272.
I don't think you raised that, did you?
I did talk about the different sizes, Mr Mayor, so Councillor Daphne McDonald is right.
Okay. For the Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I did listen to the committee meeting in relation to this subject, and it is very important as the city grows that we take consideration of planting, but part of the process is objections are put in and officers do review that to consider the objections that have been submitted. And the particular council's recommendation was a generous planting, which they feel is appropriate. And as we know, those plants will grow. And I do believe that people that buy into these areas buy in for that particular character. So I would expect someone to pay in the amount of money that they will in this area would be wanting to ensure that the character is met and would improve the landscape in the area. But I also want to make sure that we as a city don't get involved in what's happening on private property as well. As mentioned by, I believe it's Councillor Owen Jones, that our officers do have a lot of work on their plate just to maintain council concerns, and getting involved in private properties is, I don't think, our objective. And it's really important that we do trust the buyers. Don't underestimate the buyers. They buy in an area because they like that character, and I'd be very confident that someone that did buy in that particular area would be looking to improve the grounds establishment anyway. So on those reasons, I'm going to support.
Speaking against the motion, Councillor Hamill. Yeah, a quick floor, if you don't mind, Councillor Jones.
I yield the floor. Very quick floor, Mr Mayor, just to explain why I'll be supporting this today. So for me, Mr Mayor, one of the most important images that I took in why I've supported this and then looking at the plans for this was on page 94. So I'm not so concerned about the block size. For me, what actually makes an area is the street frontage, the site cover and the distance between houses. The street frontage of these two developments, because it's on a corner block, will appear to be the same as every other house around it. The site cover is actually less than some of the houses directly behind it as well, which on 94 is very clear with the property behind. A single detached dwelling has a higher site cover than these two detached dwellings combined. And third for me, Mr Mayor, is the distance between houses. For all intents and purposes, when you drive past this, it will appear as two separate properties with the same street frontage, the same distance between houses and the same site cover. I think it is in keeping with the rest of the area, and if we see that general pattern of development of this occur on appropriate corners, which I made the point at committee that while there is however many corners there are, it's very clear to see straight away that most of them would be impossible to develop because the street frontage requirements that are part of city plan couldn't be met. So I think this is an excellent development. There will be more of it across the city. And if they can be to this kind of example, not just architecturally, but in terms of the effort put into street frontage sizes, landscaping, architectural appeal and the site cover, that it's a good outcome.
Okay. Against the motion? Councillor Owen Jones to close.
Mr Mayor, two-lot subdivisions is where it's at in this city. It's, it gets everybody passionate and that's a great thing. So, Mr Mayor, we've heard a fair few words today and I just wanted to touch on some of them. One was the idea of encroachment, and I think that what we have is change, not necessarily encroachment. We have a city plan that imagines that change may happen, and there are levels of assessment that are triggered between code and impact assessment. Doesn't mean that it can't happen. We don't actually have a prescriptive scheme. We have a scheme that relies on officers making a merit-based recommendation, and each proposal will be dealt on its individual merits. But it's the level of assessment. So it's the difference between code and impact assessment. we've heard about the number of submissions, and every submission is an important submission, but I know that in regards to the Helensvale one, I actually used social media to inform the residents that there was an application that had been made and that would be going to public advertising, and I encourage people to look at it because the city plan allowed for it to happen and that they should be mindful of it. So sometimes in regards to how we as representatives manage the conversations we have with the communities get us different results. So to be honest, I was surprised that there was only one formal submission that was received in regards to the Armidale property, because there had been a fair amount of chatter in regards to the idea of creating two from one. But I think it's beholden on councillors to be part of that process of informing the residents of what the scheme may allow and what the difference between the levels of assessment is, and the fact that we actually have to deal with the scheme that we have, not the scheme that we may wish existed. So low density isn't defined as such, but there is a series of objectives that the scheme places in terms of a strategic overall objective, and it's being met on this one, and I think that it's a good thing, Mr Mayor.
Okay, debate's closed. Councillors, divisions core, all in favour, show of hands.
Mayor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Gates, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Bowden Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Pauline Young and Councillor O'Neill.
Against?
Councillor Patterson, Councillor Tozer and Councillor McDonald. Oh, sorry, Councillor Forster, didn't see you there. Yeah. Councillor Forster.
All right, that motion's carried. Councillors, any other items you want to deal separately? Councillor Caldwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm going to resist clarifying something as well. Mr Mayor, I move that the remaining recommendations of the Planning and Environment Committee be adopted.
Seconder, Councillor Peter Young. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry. Unanimous. Thank you, Director. All right. Councillors, we go to Governance, Administration and Finance. Councillor Owen Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the report of Governance, Administration Finance Committee meeting held on Wednesday the 30th of November 2020, covered by recommendations 1 to 12, be received.
Second to Councillor Patterson. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Councillor Owen Jones.
Mr Mayor, if I could deal with two things. First one is 6.4, which is the City Honours and Recognition Policy update.
We go to 6.4, councillors.
Mr Mayor, the update that was on the agenda dealt specifically with effectively the removal of elected representatives from being able to be nominated, which I think we all appreciate is a wise move. And then at committee we had a further discussion, and
this job is rewarding enough.
What, sorry?
This job is rewarding.
It's an honour, Mr Mayor. It's an honour, and it also stretches to both our state and federal colleagues as well, who get rewarded more, Mr Mayor. So, but it did lead to a conversation regarding a couple of other things. Steve Brooks has circulated a memo where we dealt with those. One was a streamlining of the process in regards to keys to the city, and the other one was in regards to the ability, by exception, in dealing with the annual awards, for a councillor to be able to make a suggestion from the floor. So, so the change that I would propose would be that the City Honours and Recognition Policy be further updated as outlined in the memorandum circulated to all councillors on the 1st of December 2022. And if I have a seconder, I won't speak to it, Mr Mayor.
Seconder, Councillor Pauline Young.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
You want to speak to it?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I said if I had a seconder I wouldn't speak to it, so I'm happy to close if required.
Anyone want to speak against that?
No, but...
No, only against.
I'm just saying, obviously the memorandum should be applied to inserted with the minutes, I would think, Mr Mayor.
Okay.
If you don't mind, thanks.
You do that?
Yep. Well, take it as read that it will happen. Councillor Colwell?
Just a question, and perhaps through you to the CEO. The use of the word extraordinary in the memorandum.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not too sure actually if it was extraordinary. It was really by exception. It wasn't designed that all councillors would be able to add names. It just didn't prohibit it happening. So I can have a look at the memo, Mr. Mayor, but it was.
Just happen to have it with me.
So it's that councillor is not excluded from making a nomination during the council meeting where it's considered the award recipients, subject to the circumstances being extraordinary, the nomination having the ability to contribute to the awards being the pinnacle recognition of awards in the city, and within 24 hours of the council meeting agenda being published, the nominee being checked against the eligibility and selection criteria, and the details of the nominee, including achievement contribution, being communicated to all councillors.
Councillor Colwell, is that?
Well, I assume it's and, in which event the first threshold of it being extraordinary, I don't know how we're going to interpret that. And I don't know if it's necessary wording at all. I think you could just remove bullet point 1 and leave it to, if it adds to the bullet point 2, which is the adds to the blah, blah, blah of the awards, and we have time to check them. Otherwise, I just don't know what circumstances are going to be extraordinary enough that we'll be able to make a nomination from the floor.
Well, for extraordinary, let's go to Councillor Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually raised this at committee, Mr. Mayor, because I could think of 2 occasions where in recent years we've had nominations from the floor because we felt at the time of review, it would be the first time we'd seen a nomination list, and some of us thought that there was a more deserving representative. And the one that I mentioned at committee was when we did the Legacy Committee for the Commonwealth Games in the lead up to 2018. And the Honourable Rob Borbidge wasn't on the list that we received, and I raised his name from the floor and said a statesman like the Honourable Rob Borbidge would be a great person to chair our Legacy Committee, and so it was adopted. And the question I simply asked at committee was, could we continue to do that as the policy has been presented to us? And Steve Brooks kindly said he would take it away and prepare some words. Now, I have no problem with taking out the circumstances being extraordinary. I agree with Councillor Caldwell that that's kind of hard to define. But the other dot points could remain, and I think we'd all be in a comfortable place.
Councillor Owen Jones, you...
Be further updated as outlined in the memorandum circulated to all councillors on the 1st of December, with the exception of the first bullet point.
Okay, with the exception of the first bullet point. Councillor Pauline Young, you okay with that?
And now I will close, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, we made... Yeah, so
yeah,
we
but you can't close because I've got to ask if there's anyone to speak against that part now.
Of course, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone to speak against, with the exception of the first bullet point, primarily? Councillor Owen Jones, could you close?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for inviting me to do that. Mr. Mayor, we made some changes to the honours and recognition policy in the last 12 to 18 months, and they've already reaped rewards. And in particular, Mr. Mayor, the Gold Coast Senior of the Year was Mr. Claude Harvey, and he has been successful in being the Queensland Senior of the Year, which I think is extraordinary recognition of the amazing work that he's done in raising, from memory, almost $2 million for the Bravehearts organisation by pushing a lawnmower around Australia a couple of times, and he's now in the running for the federal awards. And so those major changes that we made are actually forming a really great pathway for Gold Coast citizens to be recognised at both the state and the national level, Mr. Mayor. The changes that we've proposed in terms of the removal of elected representatives, I think we all agree with, and I think that we're now in furious agreement in regards to the other 2 minor changes that came out of the committee, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, the debate's closed. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, carry unanimous. Any other items to be dealt separately, councillors? Councillor Owen-Jones?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the remaining recommendations of the Governance Administration Finance Committee be adopted.
Councillor Patterson, seconder. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry unanimous. Thank you. Right, we now go to Economic Tourism and Events. Councillor Castro.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr Mayor. I move the report of the Economy, Tourism and Events Committee, which was held on Wednesday the 30th of November 2022, covered by recommendations 1 to 9, be received.
Seconder, Councillor Tozer. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carry. Any items to be dealt separately? Councillor Castro?
Mr Mayor, we had some very robust debate on all the items, and I was hoping that that would have been the outcome, that all that robust debate was done in the committee, and we wouldn't need to do it today. So moved, Mr Mayor.
Okay, second to Councillor Tozer. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Unanimous. Thank you, Director. Councillors, before we go to consideration of notice of motion, in item 7.1, there was a second special budget that we didn't adopt. So, councillors, right, long-term financial outlook. We should have done it in the 7.1, so in the rare occasion of using a reverse gear.
I'll second that.
Yeah, that the committee recommendation be adopted. Second to Councillor Owen-Jones. Anyone wants to speak against long-term financial outlook? And sustainability for our city? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Councillor McDonald? You've got to, okay, against? Divisions call. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands.
Mayor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen-Jones, Councillor Gates, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor O'Neill.
Against?
Councillor McDonald.
Motion carries. Super majority. Is that it on that?
Yes.
So I go to 12 now?
Yes.
Councillors, we go to item 12, consideration notice of motion. It's nil. Item 13, question on notice. There's 13.1, question with notice, light rail stage 4. You've answered on that? It's presented, okay. 13.2, closed session report, question notice, elite training and practice field at Metricon Stadium. Yep.
Just in my papers, I'm not sure if it's in everyone's papers, there's actually a recommendation that refers to the questions on notice. I don't know if we need to, but I just wanted to check.
Well, if there's a recommendation, we've got to do it.
Before we move on.
Okay. 13.1, councillors. The motion's on the screen. Does someone wish to move that motion?
Yes, please.
Move, Councillor Vorster. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Owen-Jones. Councillor Vorster, you'd like to speak on that?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. It's the last meeting of the year, so I'll be very brief. I just want to reflect on the fact that there are lots of opinions concerning the fourth stage of the light rail, and I think everybody will benefit from having certain facts on a page and on the public record, and I hope to have achieved that by asking this question on notice. And I appreciate that city officers had given me the courtesy of a look at the answer almost immediately, which allowed me to settle my thinking. But the purpose in asking it is to demonstrate to the community that where we can, we'll be open and transparent. And I think that's something the project needs. Thank you.
Good on you. Anyone speak against that? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry. Unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Tozer. Good pick up for me. And 13.2, recommendation. Councillor Gates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I could just say thanks to the officers for providing the information. Happy to move it.
Moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pauline Young. You want to speak further on that?
No, Mr Mayor.
Anyone speak against? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. When I said hands, I meant one hand, okay? Unanimous. 14.1.
Here comes
Councillor Vorster.
Brief.
Brief.
Councillor Vorster.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and this one had me in a real pickle. Or am I having a ball? I'm just trying to ease up the mood. Anyway, Mr Mayor, the sport of pickleball I don't think will be an Olympic sport. Nonetheless, it has stoked...
It's a big call, Councillor.
It has stoked a lot of interest in the community, and participants in the sport have sought through me the tabling of a petition that calls for the delivery of some pickleball facilities predominantly in the north of the city. They've done so because I'm presently the Chair of Lifestyle and Community. I have spoken with the Divisional Councillor, Councillor Caldwell, who represents the lead petitioner, who's based at Paradise Point, and the council was comfortable with me tabling it in that capacity as the chairperson. Happy for city officers to look at it and for it to be referred to the appropriate committee if we have a seconder.
So you moved the motion on the screen?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Seconder, Councillor Owen Jones? Or? Yeah. Seconder, Councillor Owen Jones. Question?
So, Mr Mayor, I think most councillors will appreciate that the pickleball community are a very enthusiastic group of sports participants, and that they have some strong views in terms of the investment that the city should make. If a report was to come before the committee, I think that it's very important that we treat it like we treat some of the other sports where we look for advice from the Gold Coast and the Queensland regional groups, and I know that there are both Gold Coast and Queensland pickleball associations, and that they don't always see eye to eye with some of the local groups in regards to what expansion looks like. So ultimately these things can be incredibly expensive, and it's important that we identify opportunities that are in line with both local and state objectives for their organisations.
Okay. Councillor Gates?
I'll be very quick, but the pickleballers are currently in a temporary capacity in Northern Gold Coast using Viney Park, which is being redesigned for a total $5 million refurbishment. And as part of that, there will be some multi-use courts that will be line marked and available for pickleball as well.
Anyone speak against?
Pickleballers.
Okay. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, motion carried. Next item, 14.2, Councillor Vorster. Oh, they're all yours. Okay.
Mr Mayor, this one should be Councillor McDonald. I think I'm 13.3.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it had been sent to my office, but referred to Councillor McDonald.
Well, who's Councillor McDonald? You want to move the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I move that the petition in regards to concerns regarding the esplanade at Burleigh Heads be sent to the relevant committee for consideration.
Seconder, Councillor Vorster. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, carry, unanimous. 14.3, Councillor Vorster. Is it you?
Yeah, it is, Mr Mayor, and I just have a different recommendation, and that is that the petition not be received. Second. And that the CEO writes to all petition signatories advising that a parliamentary petition is the best and most effective way of seeking actions. seeking action, I should say, sorry, on the state-related issues raised in the petition.
Second is Councillor Jones. If I can, I would, but you know what? I'll call division on this one, so names can be recorded. Do you want to speak further on that?
Yeah, look, thanks, Mr Mayor. So we're all quite aware of the scourge of hooning. It ruins the quiet enjoyment of people's homes. It causes lots of distress, and it can actually result in injury and death. As a city, we've responded by lobbying at every turn for stronger laws. We've supported the police with the trial of anti-hoon cameras, and yet the issue persists. Now, many residents look to the QPS website for a definition of hooning, and they see things like playing loud music or driving a little bit fast around a roundabout. So they have this assumption that everything is a hooning offence and should be treated by the police as, you know, an investigation that will ultimately lead to the crushing of a vehicle. Managing the expectations in the community are very difficult for us as a council because we've done what we can, but ultimately expectations are not really being managed by the state. The lead petitioner canvassed the community, very frustrated with some road noise issues on Labour Drive, and delivered this petition to me. And when I spoke to the lead petitioner, I said, look, I can table this petition at council. I'm very happy to do it. But the problem is, what you are seeking is changes at a state level, and council cannot compel the state government to respond to a council petition. The only way of compelling a response from the government is through the parliamentary website. The lead petitioner was very satisfied with that. However, there was another interested party in the community who felt very firmly that council should consider the petition. So I wrote to everyone in the affected catchment, explained the situation, and I received a response that the lead petitioner was happy for me to forward their petition onto the relevant minister. So the purpose of this motion is to satisfy my obligation under the local law, which is to bring the petition to council, so I can tick that box. But the lead petitioner now accepts that this should be handled by the state government. And to the extent that there are people in that community who believe that it's a council issue, I've written to them, I've explained why the state government should be held accountable, and I've sought and secured the support of the local state member to table that petition in the state parliament, in the same way as the member for Surfers Paradise has recently done for the residents of Main Beach. So this isn't to dismiss any concerns that people have around road safety. I, more than most, have been affected by the work of hoons. I want to make sure that those who are responsible for the enforcement are the ones that are tasked with responding, and the only way to do that is through the Parliament and not the Council on this occasion.
Anyone want to speak against the motion? Division, put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hand.
Mayor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Gates, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill. Against?
Carried, unanimous. 14.4, Councillor Vorster.
Everyone's happy. 14.4, thanks, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, you may recall in an earlier round I sought Council's permission to participate in decisions concerning the reinvigoration of the Varsity Lakes retail strip. The proponent of this push is Melissa Bergen. Her name appears on the screen earlier. And Mr Mayor, she's leading a group of concerned businesses who would like to improve the nighttime economy of Varsity Lakes.
Now, could you put the motion on the screen, please?
This can be achieved with whimsical lights. But what I've done in parallel, Mr Mayor, is started a tactical urbanisation project discussion with city officers, which will actually be the forum to capture their aspirations and deliver some outcomes. what I'm doing is tabling this petition because I'm obliged to do that under the subordinate local law, but the petition will be referred to the city officers working on the broader plan for the precinct.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Tozer? You want to speak further on that? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, motion carried.
Oh no. The last
Councillors, general business item. Item 15, nil. Councillors, we go to other business. 16.1, Councillor Gates.
On this one, Mr Mayor, I have a changed recommendation that reads that the matter not be further considered until the Scenic Rim Regional Council has taken a clear position on the matter and formally notified the City of Gold Coast of that position.
Second to Councillor Jones.
And Mr Mayor, I don't believe I need to speak to this in detail other than to say this is a matter that's been raised by the Scenic Rim and needs to be dealt with by the Scenic Rim prior to our involvement.
Yeah, I agree. And they may decide not. And what are we doing talking about it? Okay. Speaking against the motion, anyone? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, carry unanimous. 16.2. Council. Where's the motion there? Moved, is it? Move, Councillor Owen Jones, second to Councillor Gates. Question, yep.
So, Mr Mayor, it's through you to the CEO in regards to item 3 of the recommendation, which is ranked in order outlined in the report. And I was just interested in the CEO's views in regards to the conflict of that part of the recommendation with the agenda on page 77. It talked about a skills analysis and the existing board and what was missing. And I think that because of the names, it doesn't necessarily meet the skills objective if that was to occur. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that, Mr CEO.
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Noting this is a confidential item, I'll keep it as high level as I can. So our process has been complete, Councillor. The process has delivered a clear preferred candidate. A panel was formed. That panel included myself, the Chief Investment Officer and Mr Paul Donovan. The panel recommendation was unanimous and very clear. The way the panel operated was we reviewed the existing members of the board, as you indicated, recognising that there was going to be some change as a result, or the potential for some change as a result of the recent elections for the elected members of that board. We then reviewed each of the candidates against a set of criteria that was determined based on what we considered were the necessary skills, taking into account the skills that were already on the board, and we assessed those applicants. There were 25 applicants, there were 5 shortlisted, and as I mentioned, based on that criteria, the independent panel unanimously determined that there was a standout candidate by quite a sizable amount.
Okay, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just through you, just so that I understand, because I think I just need to clarify. So on page 77, where you have the scores, is that what we're talking about when we're talking about the ranking, or am I missing it somewhere else? Oh, it is. Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Caldwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So through you to the CEO, in the process, did you score the whole cohort first and then cut to 5, or did you cut to 5 and then only score those 5?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, the process the panel determined to take was to shortlist based on the top 5 candidates. Once we got those top 5 candidates, then we assessed against each of those criteria with an even weighting, which I should have mentioned, to determine the overall score.
So, Mr Mayor, through you, and I've got no I just want the process to be right. And I think it was a good process, but it could be better. And the reason I say that is that if we look at page 86, I'm having trouble reconciling the markings that are in the second last column versus, for example, the markings that are in the third last column or the fourth last column. And I particularly won't mention names, but just trying to get an insight as to how that analysis appears to have led to one person making the final 5, but the other 2 not. Can you give us an insight into how that happened?
Sure, through you, Mr Mayor. So I can only really, Mr Mayor, repeat what I said earlier, which is each of the candidates were assessed, a shortlisted candidates were put together based on that criteria, and then the panel, taking a reasonable view, assessed that there were 5 standout candidates, and then for each of those candidates we assessed them against each of the criteria. But through you, Mr Mayor, to the councillor, in determining that top 5, we used that criteria to, at a high level, to decide, well, who were the best 5 candidates, or who were the standout candidates, I should say, which happened to be 5.
Councillor Caldwell.
Mr Mayor, I think I would actually be interested in deleting point 3 off that as an amendment. And the reason I say that is because, and if you, I think I'll just try and talk to this as best I can, but of the 5 that were shortlisted, if we appoint 1 today, there was obviously something happened with another one that I won't talk about.
Can't speak on
no, that's right, so we won't talk about that. We've got one who has another attribute that I think was specifically excluded, and that leaves 2. Now, what I'd actually be interested in, if and when there is an opportunity for us to appoint a second person.
Can't speak on that.
No, but that's what the,
I know.
Sorry, that's what is on the board, right? So I'm talking to point 3.
All right.
If, for example, point 3 on the board was to be triggered, I actually would be interested in a broader spectrum of candidates then being included, and I still think it should then be a council decision. So I propose to move an amendment that, for the time being, deletes 3.
Okay. Move a amended motion with item 1 and 2 only. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Vorster. Okay.
So, Mr Mayor, I'll try and be as brief as I can, because I think it's sort of self-explanatory from what I've said in the vague way that we can say it and still be in open. But, you know, the whole objective of this process was to set up better governance in terms of how we make these appointments, to make sure that we are drawing on what is a very broad and deep talent pool here on the Gold Coast, and we can see that in the list of candidates that have been put forward. And for anyone who says, oh, gee, there's only a small number of people we can pick from, I think the process we've gone through has shown there's a huge number of people that could be appointed out of this list. And so I actually think it's worthwhile us just making sure we cast our eyes a little bit more broadly if the previous circumstance was to arise, and that the CEO then bring that matter back for council's decision. And I would be interested in that point in understanding a little bit more about the scoring regime that led to short-circuiting the lists, etc. And I think that will improve our decision making.
Right, okay. Question, Councillor Tozer?
So, in keeping in mind, Mr Mayor, that the papers are confidential and I don't want to disclose anything, there was a set of metrics on the left-hand side of the columns on page 84 to 86 that identified a broader list of candidates, and the candidate that has been recommended is marked in 2 categories. Was it determined that those 2 categories were the missing, potentially the missing elements? You touched on this before a little bit, this idea that we had a look at the board as it was, we identified potentially some gaps, and we've ultimately selected a person we believe meets those. Now, I've looked at that table and I was interested to understand the process they went through, because the person we've selected appeared to be focused on 2 categories. There's only two marked in the in the table on page 86, and yet other candidates of varying expertise had multiple things selected. So I want to process that before we move to the next step.
Mr. Seah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So firstly, apologies if this hasn't been made as clear as it could have been in the paper. So there were 9 categories, nine criteria selected. All the criteria were weighted equally, and a score was generated out of 100. So there hasn't been a weighting towards 1, 2 or 3. All the criteria that are listed there, it's very hard to do this in a closed paper, but I'm trying my best, Councillor, listed in the report. All of those criteria were assessed. All the candidates, the shortlisted candidates were assessed equally against each of those criteria. Does that make sense?
My question, what I'm trying to comprehend here is there is a set of expertises that are very commonly understood as qualities or experience that any member of board, and they're things like tourism sector experience, strategic planning. These are not confidential ideas. These are very sensible elements that might. The question that I have is the selected candidate is only noted in 2 of those or 4 of those categories, whereas other candidates, was it that the person just excelled in those 2 categories, or were they the category we were looking for?
Mr. Seah.
The question the same way again. Through you, Mr. Mayor. No. So the candidate had the highest score when assessed against all of those criteria. Each of those criteria were assessed evenly.
Right. Councillor Jones.
Mr. Mayor, could I speak in favour of the amended motion?
No, I think the favour amended motion is Councillor Caldwell to go first there.
Oh, I think he opened.
Well, I opened, and I think it goes to the original motion to...
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to actually speak in favour of the amended motion.
Just bear with me for a second. I'm just trying to clarify whether, because you're a mover of the original motion, have you spoken to favour?
I did, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, then I've got to ask who would want to speak against the amended motion before I open for in favour of the amended motion. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, councillors, in favour, against the amended motion, any speakers? No? Then normally I would go to you to close for the full motion, you understand? But in this case, I just wanted to explain the viewers out there.
We're in close, Mr. Mayor.
No, we're not.
Even better. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
No, we're not. So,
okay.
Well, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support the amended motion because I think that it delivers us in a better place, and it actually, I think, deals with the heart of my first question that I asked the CEO in regards to the skills analysis on page 77. So I thank Councillor Caldwell for making it an even better motion than it was initially.
Oh, okay. So, and normally I go to you to. I'll just take that as a close.
And I'll close.
All right, councillors, the amended motion we're voting on. For the amended motion, all in favour, show of hands. Against? So, no, there's a reason, but so the amended motion is now for the motion. Is now the motion, councillors. I'd wait for that. Councillor Caldwell, do you want to speak on that? The motion? Or you say your
Do I have to own this now?
No, yeah.
Well played.
Or the motion.
Oh, now I can see why Councillor Owen Jones was so keen to support this.
It's being helpful.
Your comment can stand.
You can refer to me if you like.
Could have asked them to include it.
No, I'm happy to move it, and I don't feel.
No, it becomes a motion.
Yeah, I know. It's great, isn't it? No, I don't need this. I don't need to open on it. Thank you.
Okay, good. Against the motion,
You want to speak against the motion? No. Just before we go to against the motion, just my question to the CEO. I'm happy with the process, obviously, because we all vote on that way. Well, I did too. But just want to ask a question on what's the estimated costing to run this through?
I'm happy, Mr. Mayor, we can move to close if you want to.
No. We can find.
It's on grey paper.
What, the costing?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can answer if you like in a way that protects the close.
Okay, CEO.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the first section of that motion will be that we'll release the document subject to a review of what can be kept confidential or not. Once that's happened, we'll be able to comment on what the total cost is.
Okay. All right. Now, only the timing, and you know I can't speak on the timing. I just don't want to spend it again. That's all for the timing. So that's the reasoning why at this point in time I won't be voting for the motion. Councillors.
So, sorry, Mr. Mayor, is your concern that we should use the same pool of advertised candidates for the next appointment?
Yeah.
Any future appointment within the next...
Immediate, in the short term. I mean.
Okay, well, I'm happy to move an amendment to change that to paragraph 3.
Yeah, you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do get that. And look, I was going to be more prescriptive about it, but it's bloody hard in open. So I'm happy to move an amendment that the list of candidates... Yeah, the full list of candidates determined by the Expressions of Interest campaign form the basis of the pool of candidates to be considered should council require a further appointment to be made within the next 6 months.
Is that just to tourism or to any board?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, just for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
still have to come back.
That it comes back to council.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And that any such further appointment be a decision of council. Just checking whether Nikki's giving me...
Mr. CEO just said the last bit of the sentence doesn't require, because he hasn't got the delegation.
I don't have the delegation.
So it has to come back here.
Okay.
So you remove that from Anne onwards, if you can just delete that. Councillor Vorster, are you okay with that addition of 3, or do we have to move an amended motion?
No, Mr. Mayor. I think we've landed on a pretty good camel.
All right. Can you take the next 6 months full stop and then delete the rest? All right. You got me at 3. Yeah. All right, councillors. Anyone want to speak against the motion? Councillor Caldwell, do you like to close?
No, I think I've said plenty.
Meeting closed.
Councillors, put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Division. Okay, here we go.
Mayor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen-Jones, Councillor Gates, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald, Councillor O'Neill.
Against?
Councillor Tozer.
Motion carried, supermajority. No, I really appreciate your item 3, clause 3 there, Councillor Caldwell. I would have been recorded as if I voted against the nominated person, you know. Yeah, I know. It just, but, okay, here we go. Look, councillors, on our other business, we've dealt with it all, but there's a couple of late items which I'm going to allow. And so, Councillor P. Young, you want to say a few words? You got to go this way.
Right.
Welcome back. Need a break for lunch and come back? Okay.
But for sake of closing the loop, so to speak, you may recall, councillors may recall, I introduced a conflict of interest matter a couple of months ago in regard to accusations made against me that I'd directed officers to do particular things and misappropriated public funds. This is in relation to the cycle centre. Council gave consent for me to continue discussions with officers, which was pretty critical at this point in time because the master plan for the cycle centre is being developed, and bless you. And it was determined that I could participate in discussions, but I would advise council in due course of the outcomes of the matter. And what you see before you is a letter from the Office of the Independent Assessor. They've sent that to me about a month ago, and they've assessed the complaint made by that resident and determined and dismissed it. The decision was made, I'm quoting, because the complaint is considered to be vexatious, and they've further notified or advised the resident that if he makes the same or substantially the same complaint to the OIA or another complaint that is considered to be vexatious, he may be committing an offence against the Act, and that's punishable by a fine. I think that's important for us all to know, that the OIA's made that decision, and it's important for the community to know that those deliberations are being made to protect the broader public interest in not wasting money on unnecessary and obviously vexatious claims. I'll leave it at that, if you don't mind.
No.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
And if it is, well, we can then let other people know about it. In detail, I'm talking. It's compelling reading. Councillor Owen-Jones.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think that it will end up on our register, on our website, but maybe in a diluted form.
Yeah, but not in the full detail.
That's correct, in a diluted form.
Yeah, I know. So that's up to that's the CEO to do that. Well, I think it was important that Councillor P. Young had the opportunity to share with us. And now I'll go to the CEO.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, do we need a motion on that? Because I think
no, don't.
You don't want it?
No.
Tabled? And
it's going to be on the website, our website, and then we'll look at further. I just don't want to put us in. Just bear with. Just leave it. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your forbearance in allowing me to do this. So I just wanted today, given that this is our last meeting for the year, to thank the many, many staff who have put together what is 626 papers which have gone to council and to committees over the past 12 months. It is the classic iceberg, if you like. What we see inside this room is the papers produced, but there is a huge amount of effort that goes on inside the city administration to make these meetings run as well as they do. As a new CEO, I've been incredibly impressed by the quality of the papers that come to these meetings, particularly this meeting, but also all the committees and all of the subcommittees and the special council meetings that meet. So I just, on behalf of the city administration, wanted to say a huge thank you to all of those staff. I also want to recognise the council support team for the amazing effort that they do in supporting these meetings, all the staff who have presented at the lectern over there, I can confirm for you that for many of them it is a scary, scary thing to come into this chamber, and they have always, without exception, presented outstanding information in a fair and reasonable and unbiased way, and I wanted to thank them. And finally, I just wanted to say that there's a bit of a rumour, if you like, or it's completely incorrect that I have the toughest job inside the city administration. I don't. There are two officers who are with us today who absolutely have the toughest job inside the city administration, and they are Tracy, our minute secretary, and Tim down the back, our IT guy. So what I would like to do is ask them to come forward and receive just a very small gift on behalf of all of us for the work that they've done.
I think you get the chocolate.
Tim, good on.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, with that, councillors, consultation period starts, and the meeting closes at 12:47.